Chapter 3065. With great rewards, there will always be brave men. Even just providing useful information would allow one to become the overlord of a secondary universe. If one could directly offer up the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow, one would be able to obtain 2 secondary universes, as well as the energy of the origin of the ruler. This meant that one would become a sage. In addition to the eternal protection of Quang Manor, such a temptation might not tempt the sages, but those below the sages, even the sages' sons would be tempted. Quang Manor's older, second, and third generation experts had all left. Even the ancient massacre god had left for the various secondary universes, leaving behind only the most ordinary soldiers, all of whom were from Quang Manor's celestial empire. Yen Emperor was the only expert left. Heaven's suppressing palace still had Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing. Medusa had left to search for the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing Bao, but she was with Jian Chenxue, Green Lotus Sword Saint, and the others. No one other than the sages could defeat them. A few years later, Quang Manor's men could be found in every corner of the 3 secondary realms and Qiu Tian domain. Yi Qinghan followed the team of adventurers. This team's treasure hunting skill was quite good, especially their ability to calculate the final destination of a black hole through its starting point. This was a skill that Yi Qinghan failed to learn along the way. Hua Xiu Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared in front of the group. He looked at the 3 ancestor realm experts in the lead with a dignified expression. His hands were placed behind his back, and his aura was so oppressive that the ancestor realm experts almost stopped breathing. "I am Yi Qinghan, Quang Manor's Manor Lord." "Greetings," said Yi Qinghan in a dignified manner. "CSI." The 3 old men sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were full of doubt. Everyone in the world knew the name of the crazy Manor Lord, but not many people knew what he looked like. They all knew that he was a young man, but they didn't expect him to be so powerful. Yi Qinghan's chiseled face was very clear. It was 70% righteous and 30% evil. His aura of righteousness and killing intent coexisted. His black hair fluttered in the chaos. His hair fell to his shoulders. His eyes were like black holes that could steal one's soul. "Do you have any proof?" It was an old man with white hair. His strength couldn't be underestimated. He should be a core figure who roamed the Qiu Heaven region all year round and was especially knowledgeable about treasure hunting. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the 7 feet of madness appeared in his hand, fusing with the divine bird in an instant. The might of the sages surged, and the laws and logos of the primal universe were lifted. Other than the Flame Emperor and Yi Qinghan, who else in the younger generation could do this? Whoosh! The group of experts and adventurers all bowed and cupped their fists. "Greetings, Manor Lord of the Crazy Manor. We didn't know that the esteemed Lord was here." These people were somewhat excited. They never expected to bump into Yi Qinghan here, nor did they expect Yi Qinghan to take the initiative to look for them. The old man in the lead had white hair and a ruddy complexion. At this moment, he was also a little excited. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Manor Lord Yi. To be able to interact with Manor Lord Yi today is the fortune of 3 lifetimes. I wonder what business Manor Lord Yi has with us? How did you find the black hole's starting point and where it dissipated?" Yi Qinghan asked curiously. This group of people never expected Yi Qinghan to ask such a question. This was their specialty. If everyone knew about it, how could they make a living in the future? Yi Qinghan saw that the group was somewhat hesitant, so he said bluntly, "Since it's not convenient for you to say, I'll ask something else. If you know that there was a black hole starting point many years ago, can you find where it dissipated? The general area is fine as well." The old man in the lead frowned and thought for a while. He then said in a low voice, "If not much time has passed and the heaven domain hasn't changed much, then we can find it. If too much time has passed and the heaven domain has changed much, then the chances of finding where the black hole dissipated are too slim." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and he asked in a low voice, "So you're saying that there's still a chance of finding it?" "Theoretically, we can find it. However, we've never looked for such a difficult route," the old man in the lead said seriously. Yi Qinghan exhaled a turbid breath and gestured with his hand, "Everyone, follow me to the heaven domain outside the 9-star domain." As for the reward, I'll give it to you until you don't want it. The dozen people were overjoyed. Who wouldn't want to join the Kwang Manor? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Sure enough, the old man in the lead immediately bowed and said, "If Manor Lord Yi accepts us as members of the Kwang Manor and gives us the identity of a generation, we're willing to offer our treasure hunting skills, including the method to find where the black hole dissipated." Yi Qinghan frowned. The first generation of the Kwang Manor was the older generation. There were only a dozen or so people who had fought side by side for countless years and recognized each other. Not just anyone could become a member of the first generation. The first generation doesn't accept people. Even if I accept you, you won't be able to integrate into that circle. If possible, I can promise to give you the identity of a second generation member, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Second generation? The old man in the lead clearly wasn't satisfied with this identity. Their cultivation and strength weren't bad. The second-generation members of the Kwang Manor were all juniors. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, "The second-generation members I'm talking about are the outer elders. I'm not talking about the second-generation disciples of the Kwang Manor. However, your status will definitely be recognized by everyone in the Kwang Manor and the world." More than a dozen adventurer teams looked at each other and nodded without hesitation. This old man is Sun Ying. Greetings, Manor Lord. This old man is Shui Yang. Greetings, Manor Lord. Everyone bowed and introduced themselves. Yi Qinghan noted down their identities one by one, then took them away and sped away from the 9-star domain. This was the final location of the great battle. It was because it was too close to the 9-star domain. If not for the fact that this was the foundation of the origin universe, the 9-star domains might have been destroyed. Sun Ying looked at this place in shock and said with a trembling voice, "Manor Lord, you're talking about the black hole created by the battle of the ancient virtuous paragons? You want me to use this place to find the place where the black hole dissipated?" Yi Qinghan nodded and said seriously, "Yes." Sun Ying almost despaired. How many years had it been? How could they possibly find the traces of the past? Manor Lord, with the passage of time, the traces of the past have long since disappeared. Even if this old man had the ability to reach the heavens, I still wouldn't be able to find the place where the black hole dissipated. The reason why the cooperation of the 10 of us became famous is because we thoroughly understood the fundamental order of the Seeking Heaven domain. This place is like a rock stratum. There will be a special rock stratum in every era. What we can understand is the Seeking Heaven domain rock stratum, formed in recent years, which is the fundamental order of the Seeking Heaven domain. You want us to find the fundamental order of the ancient era? This is too difficult for us. Sun Ying smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan said helplessly, "Give it a try. It's best if you can find it, but if you can't, I won't blame you." Chapter 3066. Faced with Yi Qinghan's request, Sun Ying and the others had no choice but to give it a try. The fundamental order of the heaven domain was not the order of laws, but traces that could be followed. This was something that could only be sensed through years of experience and intuition. It was not something that could be sensed just because one's cultivation was high. Even if Sun Ying and the others told Yi Qinghan about the technique, he would still be clueless. Sun Ying and the others followed the current traces to find the traces of the past. They were very blurry, almost non-existent. However, they still relied on their many years of experience to forcefully push forward countless kilometers, arriving at a region that humans had never entered before. This region was even more dangerous than the previous ones. Sun Ying and the other experts could no longer continue forward. They could only rely on Yi Qinghan to lead them forward. The further they went, the more dangerous and difficult it became. The black holes were densely packed, erasing all traces of the past. Sun Ying and the others were powerless to reverse the situation. "Manor Lord, this is the only place we can find. Logically speaking, we should be able to find some traces if we go all the way in. However, it's too dangerous. We can't do anything about it," Sun Ying said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan looked into the distance. It was true that the progenitor realm could not go any further. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and handed over more than 10 tokens of the crazy manor. He said indifferently, Go back the way you came. I'll go deeper and take a look. Perhaps I'll find something. Sun Ying and the other experts all retreated from the dangerous area. Along the way, although Sun Ying and the others helped Yi Qinghan lead the way, they also found some strange treasures. They were all high-grade refining materials that were naturally born in the chaos and were priceless. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan shuttled through the dangerous land of primordial chaos, avoiding the chasms and crevices. The bottomless ravines were filled with energy that could erupt at any time, capable of devouring everything. It was a chilling sight. Even though Yi Qinghan's cultivation was heaven-defying, he did not dare to casually enter such a place. He could only take a detour. High-grade refining materials could be seen everywhere, but they were all snatched away by him. Whoosh, 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 chaotic astral winds wreaked havoc, blowing so hard that their souls were about to explode. Black holes could appear at any moment in the unstable space. Yi Qinghan was extremely nervous. Little white clouds were attached to every corner of his body. His head was completely relying on its own strength to defend itself. Every step he took caused him to tremble slightly. Whoosh! Boom! The space was filled with cracks, and a black hole suddenly appeared beside him, swallowing up endless matter and energy. The energy inside the black hole was even stronger than the devouring power of the sea. Yi Qinghan was careless and was sucked into the black hole. His body was almost torn apart. If it wasn't for little white cloud's protection, he would have been minced meat by now. He tried his best to get out, but the power of the black hole was not something he could fight against. All of his power was protecting his head. Light shone brightly as he shuttled through the black hole. At this moment, he could only rely on his will to fight against the black hole. If he lost, he wouldn't even have the chance to breathe. Inside the black hole, there was only the sound of energy exploding. There was no other sound, not even the wind. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan was like duckweed in the middle of a stormy sea. He was being pulled deeper and deeper into the black hole. At this point, it was impossible to escape. Inside the black hole, there was no light or darkness. Everything was silent. Yi Qinghan looked around but couldn't see anything. He closed his eyes and tried to sense the laws of order here, but he couldn't sense anything either. 1. The black hole's crazy tearing caused his head to be hit by the energy waves. His soul was buzzing and he almost fainted. I can't give up, Yi Qinghan growled. His soul was rapidly gathering as he forced himself to wake up. There was no concept of time here. Perhaps time didn't even pass in the black hole. After an unknown amount of time, the tearing force disappeared. Yi Qinghan was thrown into the distance by a force. Yi Qinghan suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the large piles of rocks in the void. It was like a garbage dump. There were all sorts of things here: corpses, broken soldiers, and broken mountains. They were all brought here by the black hole. However, the black hole wasn't able to decompose everything. Some things were preserved, but the value of these things was unimaginable. These undecomposable materials had been abandoned here by the black hole. He didn't know where this place was, but there was a large planet nearby. Therefore, this place wasn't in the dark. A faint light enveloped this garbage dump. There was a mountain of all sorts of materials, and he could even see a few corpses. Yi Qinghan leaped and appeared in the mountain. The mountain was mostly made of chaos materials and was extremely hard. Upon closer inspection, the corpses didn't belong to humans at all. They were primordial chaos creatures. Some were relatively large, while others were very thin. They weren't much bigger than humans, but their bodies were covered in wounds. They had probably been killed by the black hole. In the end, they couldn't be decomposed and were abandoned here. Yi Qinghan wouldn't have believed that such things existed in the primal universe if others had told him about them. But he had no choice but to believe it when he saw it with his own eyes. Hiss! Yi Qinghan drew a cold breath as he felt the roots of his teeth ache. The divine bird separated from Yi Qinghan and looked at the garbage mountain. The corners of its mouth trembled. So many treasures! The divine bird cried out excitedly. Yi Qinghan was especially vigilant. He held his saber and constantly climbed up. The higher he stood, the further he could see. There were many floating objects around him that emitted light. He couldn't store anything here in his interspatial ring. His interspatial ring was of a very high level, but in front of these materials, the difference in level was too great. "It's a pity that I can't take away the good stuff," Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. The divine bird stumbled and found a relatively small stone to store in its bosom. Yi Qinghan frowned as he looked around. He was indeed interested in the items here, but he wanted to see if there were any living creatures around. Shoo! Yi Qinghan used the floating forces in the area to leap up and appear on the corpse of a massive chaos creature. The corpse had no signs of life. It had been dead for countless years, and its skin had already turned to stone. It was so hard that even heavy frenzy couldn't leave a mark on it. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan used heavy frenzy to strike the corpse's back. It took him a lot of effort to shatter a layer of rock, revealing the corpse's true appearance. It was like a creeping void creature. Its fangs were as sharp as knives. Despite being dead for countless years, they were still extremely powerful. Whoosh! Hum! Yi Qinghan slashed at the eerie fangs, hoping to cleave them down and take them away, but when he struck the fangs, he was instantly sent flying. Heavy frenzy nearly slipped out of his hand. This. Yi Qinghan grimaced. His right hand was sore, and the web between his thumb and index finger had nearly split open. Holy shit, what the hell is this creature? Yi Qinghan looked at the behemoth in front of him in shock. Just one of its fangs was half the height of a person. If he could take it down and polish it for a period of time, it would be a true killing weapon. Chapter 3067. Yi Qinghan was stunned by the creature that had been dead for many years. Even after being dead for so long, the laws and logos of order in its body had not dissipated. After the baptism of the black hole, its corpse still made the sages despair. After that, Yi Qinghan and the divine bird merged again and attacked together. They even used the power of the original universe. At that moment, the energy between heaven and earth surged. Even the trash mountain was shaking. The blade crossed the star field and came from the endless wilderness, slashing hard at the longest fong. Boom! Bang! Hua! Hua! The aftermath shook the mountains and rivers. The entire trash mountain was shaken and moved back a few meters. However, the trash mountain was too big, and the material inside was special, so it was almost negligible. Flames shot out from the collision between the fong and the heavy force, making an ear-piercing sound. Yi Qinghan frowned. His soul was almost shattered. Shio! Boom! Yi Qinghan flew back to the trash mountain. He covered his ears with both hands. Blood flowed out of his orifices, and his eyes were on fire. Fuck this thing, I'm going to take it. Yi Qinghan looked at the shaking fong. When the tearing sound faded, he took to the air again. Boom! Another slash. Yi Qinghan didn't know exhaustion. After countless strikes, his face was covered in blood and the web between his thumb and forefinger was cracked. But in the end he managed to break the fong. It was about a meter long. After polishing and tempering it and adding a handle, it would definitely become one of the sharpest daggers or short swords. Yi Qinghan held the fong. It was not heavy, but it was extremely sharp. Even the heavy force was tired. There were dozens of notches on it, and it would break at any time. However, he did not care. He would use this treasure in the future. Hua! Yi Qinghan took out a battle robe and tore it into a bag. Then he put the fong in the bag and carried it on his back. He continued to search the trash mountain. Rocks as heavy as stars were lifted and thrown to the side. About 20 hours later, the light in this place became even brighter. It was as if it had been night before, and now it was daytime. After the view was restored, Yi Qinghan quickly dug through the trash mountain. Pieces of true treasure materials were thrown into the void and floated away with the energy. For several months, the two of them had searched through the trash mountain. They found some terrifying treasures, all of which were refining true treasures. There were even 3 godly weapons that had not been destroyed, but they had fallen into a deep sleep. One of them was a green sword. When it moved gently, it was like a gentle breeze. It looked ordinary, but it had a majestic aura. It stood there like a great scholar, full of wisdom. Although it was not human, it had a temperament that no human could possess. It was refined, gentle, and generous. However, if one looked closely, they would find that the sword's edge was covered in runes. It seemed to be sealing the edge of the sharp sword. The other was a spear. The entire spear was engraved with runes that had never been seen before. This was the weapon most commonly used during the primordial era. Moreover, most of them came from the military. It was filled with hostility and slaughter all year round. The difference between the spear and the green sword was like heaven and earth. One was positive while the other was negative. The green sword made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was very comfortable to look at, just like a work of art. On the other hand, this spear was eerily red. It was cold and chilling, causing people to shudder. They felt as if this spear was going to pierce their hearts. It was suffocating. The last item of the primordial chaos was a book. It was an extremely ancient book. Yi Qinghan did not pay attention to the spear or the green sword. Instead, he stared at the book. There were no words on the book's cover. Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose and subconsciously flipped to the first page. He was stunned by the unique words on it. He was certain that he had never seen such words before. However, the corresponding words automatically appeared in his mind. The words here looked like hieroglyphs, but they weren't completely hieroglyphs. They were very difficult to understand, but for some reason, Yi Qinghan could roughly guess what they were describing just by looking at the words at the top. 10 arrow technique. Yi Qinghan looked at the first page. Other than these 3 words, there was nothing else. There was not even a picture of a bow. What? Yi Qinghan was filled with curiosity and thirst for knowledge as he flipped to the second page. When he saw the picture, he was stunned on the spot. Hiss! This is the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Yi Qinghan nearly jumped up. The picture on it was definitely the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Apart from some very minute details, the bow on the picture was almost identical to an immortal bow. What? Yi Qinghan directly took out the immortal bow from his body. He did not return it to Zhang Daoling. At that moment, he could completely tell the difference between the imitation and the real sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. There are clearly only 9 arrows. Why is it called the 10-arrow technique? Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose and muttered to himself. Supreme martial artist Yi suddenly appeared from behind and slapped Yi Qinghan's back. Boss, have you not realized what's going on? The discovery of the 10-arrow technique here means that virtuous sage Ho Yi's corpse has been swept here? Will the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow be swept in with him? Why are you thinking about why it's called the 10-arrow technique? Has your brain been kicked by a donkey? Smack! Yi Qinghan closed the ancient 10-arrow technique and clapped his hands. He shouted, "Right, how could I forget about this?" What? Yi Qinghan waved his hand and put the spear and sword on his back. He continued to search around, hoping to find virtuous sage Ho Yi's body. It would be best if he could find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Help me search, maybe we can find it. It should be nearby. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was finally excited. He had finally found a trace of the 10-arrow technique. As long as he could find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow, would he still be afraid of virtuous paragons? There were floating objects everywhere in the vast land of chaos. Any one of them would provoke the sages of the sacred grounds to fight over them. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan didn't care about them. The main reason was that he couldn't take them away. After all, they were heavy and big and couldn't fit into his ancestral ring. What? Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi worked together to search in 2 directions. They didn't even let go of the back of the chaotic meteors. Their divine senses spread out and enveloped every part of the mountain. However, after searching for dozens of days, they didn't find Ho Yi's body or the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Yi Qinghan looked into the distance. If they went any deeper, they would reach a place where even sages couldn't survive. There was nothing there. Just like the 9-star domain, there was no law or order. Moreover, it was very thorough and clean. There wasn't even any energy. Could it have floated into the depths? Yi Qinghan said in despair. Sovereign Ye's shoulders drooped as he looked into the depths. He said helplessly, "Boss, why don't we just let it go?" Let it go? Yi Qinghan shook his head helplessly and turned to look back. He saw a huge chaotic creature's corpse floating toward him. Its huge claws seemed to be holding something. His eyes couldn't help but brighten. At the end of the road, there was a glimmer of hope. Yi Qinghan's figure flashed as he charged towards the corpse of the massive chaos creature. Chapter 3068. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared below the corpse of the chaos creature. Although the corpse was lying in the void, Yi Qinghan's feet weren't even as big as the corpse's claws. The most important thing was that it was still holding a human corpse in its claws. The corpse was in a golden battle robe and had a jade belt. The corpse was not damaged, and the claws were half retracted, as if it was protecting the corpse before it died. The man looked to be in his 40s and had been dead for countless years. He was still very much alive, but the robe on his chest was shattered along with his heart. He was no longer breathing. Hiss! Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi both took a deep breath. They felt that this was Ho Yi's body that they were looking for. Is this Chaos Beast Sage Ho Yi's mount? Yi Qinghan asked in shock. Supreme Yi knew nothing about this place and even less about virtuous paragons, so he could only make guesses. Yi Qinghan was the same. The two stared at each other, not knowing what to do. Yi Qinghan pondered for a bit and said in a deep voice, "Stabilize the beast's claw. I'll take the corpse out and study its identity." Sovereign Yi did not hesitate and grabbed the beast's claws with both hands. Yi Qinghan carried the corpse out. He could not tell its identity from its battle robes and accessories. Finally, he looked at the saint's ring of cosmos on the corpse. There were obvious cracks on the ring, but it wasn't completely shattered. At this time, Ultimate Saint of Thieving Heaven's Space 9 level profundity played a crucial role. Let's go. This saint's ring of cosmos is of a very high level. The space inside is like a different world. Perhaps we can find some clues. Yi Qinghan had a glimmer of hope. He wanted to investigate the true identity of the corpse. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan merged with Supreme Yi and controlled the Space 9 level profundity. His figure flashed and directly entered the Saint's Universe Ring. The Saint's Universe Ring was vast and boundless, like a universe where humans could live. The dense forest was more than 100 meters tall. There were mountains, rivers, clouds, and hundreds of birds flying in the sky. What was even more exaggerated was that there were high-level beasts here that were almost at the progenitor realm. This was a world of its own, an independent world. Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi separated once more. Apart from the brightly colored snake that was refining the sovereign's energy, even the little golden crow and the start-whining vine came out. They roamed about in search of clues. Several hours later, screech! With a long cry, the eagle soared into the sky. The god-devouring eagle was giving out a warning. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi moved toward the god-devouring eagle almost at the same time. At this moment, the god-eater eagle transformed into a human and looked at the pile of firewood and the burnt wooden sticks. I hope you can stay here for a few days. This fortification was to guard against wild beasts, not against people from other tribes. After confirming that Yi Qinghan was not hostile, the door was opened. Which tribe are you from? Why haven't I seen you before? A big man stood at the door and asked curiously. Yi Qinghan immediately smiled and said, I'm from a very remote area. This is my first time out for training. I want to travel around, but I don't have much experience. I've used up all my supplies, so I want to come to your precious land to replenish my supplies. Oh, no wonder. Little brother, are you going to the Yishan realm to explore? The big man nodded and asked. Yi Qinghan was startled. He scratched his head and pretended to be an ignorant country bumpkin who had never seen the world. He asked in a simple and honest manner, I've always heard of the Yishan realm. However, I don't know where it is. The big man looked at Yi Qinghan and his entourage. He was a little suspicious. How could someone who had a beauty like Little Bai Hu be an idiot? He didn't even know where the Yishan realm was. Was this a joke? You're not from a nearby tribe. Or you? The big man asked cautiously. Yi Qinghan looked at Little Bai Hu, Supreme Being Yi, and the others. He had acting skills, but these guys didn't. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed softly and could only tell the truth. Fellow Taoist, there's no need to be nervous. I don't have any ill intentions. I came from the outside world and just wanted to investigate where this place is. The big man frowned and looked at Yi Qinghan. He didn't seem to believe Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan wasn't sure if this corpse was the body of Hou-Yi or a virtuous paragon from the secondary universe. Therefore, he didn't dare to speak carelessly and could only beat around the bush. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took out 2 pieces of progenitor realm origin energy of good quality. He said lightly, "Fellow Taoist, if you can tell me where the Ishan realm is, these 2 pieces of progenitor realm origin energy are yours." Chapter 3069. Money makes the world go round. As long as the resources were in place, the people here didn't care who Yi Qinghan was. The burly man didn't hesitate to take the ancestral energy source and said faintly, "Ishan world is a world created by Godfather. It's called Ishan world. This is a space abandoned by Godfather and is connected to Ishan world. The node is over 3,000 miles east of here. There's an even bigger tribe there and most of them are people from Ishan world." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and he muttered to himself, "Ishan world, is it the inner world of Hou-Yi virtuous paragon? His inner world is connected to his own universe ring and one can enter Hou-Yi virtuous paragon's inner world from the universe ring? Is the sun-shooting immortal exterminating Bao in Ishan world? Is there a descendant of Hou-Yi virtuous paragon in Ishan world?" He had too many questions but everything could be easily solved once he found Ishan world. "I'll ask one more question and I hope Dao friend can answer truthfully." Yi Qinghan pondered for a while before looking up at the burly man and said, "Who is the Godfather you're talking about?" The burly man shook his head and said, "How can Godfather's name be tarnished?" "What?" Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the immortal Bao appeared in his hand. His aura instantly erupted. Hiss, hiss. The burly man retreated dozens of steps and knelt on the ground in fear. He didn't dare to look up. "The Godfather you're talking about, is it the person holding the immortal Bao?" Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice. "Yes. Yes, the great Godfather might have disappeared for many years but he still lives in our hearts." The burly man knelt on the ground and glanced at the immortal Bao in Yi Qinghan's hand. It was almost identical to the one on Godfather's statue. He revered that immortal Bao. "Who?" Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. At this moment, he could confirm that the corpse was indeed Hou-Yi virtuous paragon. "I've searched high and low for it, only to find it by chance. Perhaps the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing Bao is in his inner world." Yi Qinghan excitedly lifted his foot and left, heading east. It was just over 1,500 kilometers. Yi Qinghan casually kept the other spiritual pets into his body, only bringing along Supremacy Yi and the little white fox. The immortal Bao was also already in his body. With a flash of his figure, he appeared outside the Great Eastern Tribe. This was the place where the space of the Qiankuan Ring and the space of Ishan Realm intersected. It was also the only place where one could enter Ishan Realm. Therefore, there were many people gathered here, and all of them had decent cultivation bases. Yi Qinghan didn't alert these people and directly entered Ishan world through the node. The moment he entered the Ishan realm, he was enveloped by an overwhelming aura and bathed in immortal light. This was Yi Qinghan's first time entering the inner world of a virtuous paragon. Sure enough, it was countless times larger than his wild martial world. The laws and principles were even more stable and did not lose out to the original universe by much. Its area was also incomparably vast and immeasurable. Hou-Yi had been dead for so many years, but the world in his body still operated according to a specific order. It was evident that this world in his body was equivalent to a complete universe. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and whispered, "A virtuous paragon is indeed a virtuous paragon. This Ishan realm is even more stable than a secondary world. Wow, this is simply a place with good feng shui." The little white fox looked at the magnificent waterfall in front of her and couldn't help but spread out her arms and sighed. The water of the waterfall spilled down and drifted far away. Very quickly, some water droplets gathered on Yi Qinghan's face. "Let's go to the main city first and see if there are any inheritors left behind by Hou-Yi," Yi Qinghan whispered. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh da Yi Qinghan took the little white fox and Supremacy Yi and left through the sky. There were tribes everywhere, and they could see huge vicious creatures hunting in the forest. Yi Qinghan didn't pay attention to these. Instead, he increased his speed and rushed towards the depths of Yishan realm. He passed through several tribes and found that the ancestor they were worshipping was the same person. It was Ho-Yi who held the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. Most of the people in the tribes didn't have much cultivation. Even if they were the descendants of Ho-Yi and had the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, they still couldn't help Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan wanted to find a true peerless expert who was 100% compatible with the immortal bow. Once he got his hands on the bow, he would become one with the bow. However, this kind of person wasn't easy to find. After continuously traveling for several months, he finally found a main city. It was a gathering place for humans, and experts were as common as clouds. The imperial city was majestic and had stood for countless years without falling. There was a huge statue erected outside the main city. It was still the statue of Ho-Yi. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan was travel-worn and finally appeared outside the city. His eyes were full of radiance. How good would it be if the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow was here? It would save me a lot of trouble. Yi Qinghan sighed. Supremacy Yi rolled his eyes and pointed with his little finger. He said, "Whether it's here or not, we'll know once we enter the city." Since they are worshipping Ho-Yi, it means that their history isn't broken. They still have some understanding of the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. The little white fox pulled Yi Qinghan's arm and hopped into the main city. She looked around and was very curious about everything. The main city was noisy. The large-scale war was very far away from here, but the small fights were endless. Let's go to the tea house and rest for a while. Let's see if we can find out some information. Yi Qinghan said calmly. The three of them walked side by side and quickly entered an elegant tea house. There were many people in the tea house. All of them were travel-worn and the tiredness on their faces was very obvious. They came here to adjust their tired souls and find out some useful information. Yi Qinghan ordered a pot of the best tea and sipped it silently. Supremacy Yi, on the other hand, was restless and turned his head around. His shifty eyes kept moving around as if he was a thief. Can you not use such an expression? The little white fox reminded him in a low voice. Look around. Everyone is guarding against us like we're thieves. Isn't it embarrassing? Supremacy Yi rolled his eyes immediately. His shoulders drooped as he said weakly, "It's so boring here. It's so lifeless. It's not like the secondary universe at all, where a fight breaks out at the slightest disagreement." Yi Qinghan couldn't help but groan. This might have something to do with one's state of mind. Supremacy Yi's state of mind was far inferior to Yi Qinghan's. Right at this moment, the originally depressing tea house suddenly became lively. An old man holding a cattail leaf fan ran in. He was very sloppy, but the people in the tea house didn't dislike him. "Old Bao, is there any good news this time?" Everyone asked excitedly. Yi Qinghan also subconsciously looked at that sloppy old Bao. His cultivation wasn't very high. He hadn't even reached the Taigu Emperor's realm. One thing has been confirmed. The sacred land has sent news again. 3 years later, the Yishan mountain will open its doors to the world. Whoever is chosen by Father will be baptized by Father's bloodline and can learn the first 5 styles of the 10-arrow technique. Old Bao said excitedly. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and his fingertips subconsciously clenched. There really is a direct descendant of Ho-Yi here. I just don't know if the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing Bao will also be on the Yishan mountain. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and secretly muttered to himself. Chapter 3070. This old Bao should be in charge of collecting information. His information was much faster than the others. At this time, old Bao opened his mouth again. Yishan Mountain opens its grace ceremony every 10,000 years. As long as one is enveloped by the light of Father God, he will become the successor of Father God. Each time, only one successor will be born. Once one becomes the successor of Father God, one can enjoy endless glory, splendor, wealth and rank. Yi Qinghan stared at old Bao and thought, Maybe I can get some useful information from his mouth. On the side, more than 10 people were discussing about the Yi Shinshan. They more or less obtained some useful information. Yi Qinghan listened carefully and didn't let go of any useful information. However, no one mentioned the sun shooting immortal destroying Bao. Even the descendants of Ho Yi rarely mentioned it. However, they did mention a very important piece of information. The Yi Shinshan was very xenophobic because after so many years, Yi Qinghan was definitely not the first person to arrive at this place. Moreover, if one was able to enter the Yi Shinshan alive, then they would certainly be in existence between the sage and virtuous paragon. Their strength was extraordinary. Once they entered this place, they would inevitably have a conflict with the Yi Shinshan. Since the fall of virtuous paragon Ho Yi until now, there were a total of 2 outsiders who entered this place. Each time, there would be a torrential rain of blood and countless casualties. Therefore, the Yi Shinshan hated outsiders very much. Huff! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. If he stated his intention, would the people of the Yi Shinshan fight to the death with him? It seems like I still need to find a suitable identity. Yi Qinghan rubbed his chin. Looking at the clothes of these people, there were some differences between them and his. It was just that these tired people didn't care. Moving at will, Yi Qinghan's clothes changed silently. There was not even the slightest movement. As for Supreme Yi Qinghan, he and Yi Qinghan's hearts were connected. At this moment, he was also changing his own clothes. Little White Fox was a girl, so there was no need for her to change anything. After all, women were always trendsetters. About an hour later, the burly men were almost done with their discussion. Some of them had already stood up and left, but old Bao did not leave. He turned his head to look at Yi Qinghan from time to time. He was best at observing people's expressions and probing for information. Yi Qinghan had been looking at him all this time, so it was impossible for him not to feel it. Old Bao walked over with a smile. Fellow Taoist, you look unfamiliar. I've wandered the Divine Yi realm for so many years, but I've never seen you before. I wonder if there's anything I can help you with? Old Bao asked with a smile. Old Bao had a thorough understanding of human nature. One would not slap a smiling person. Yi Qinghan smiled and gestured with his hand. Fellow Taoist, please take a seat. This is my first time here, and it's my first time going out to train. I would like to consult some old misters. I hope you won't be stingy with your guidance. After saying that, Yi Qinghan pushed out a piece of top-grade Ancestor Realm Source energy and placed it in front of Old Bao. He said indifferently, as long as Old Mister can help me clear up my doubts, this is just a small matter. Old Bao's eyes lit up. What he lacked the most was this kind of rare Ancestor Realm Source energy. He usually relied on information to exchange for resources, so his gains were limited. This was definitely the first time he had seen someone as generous as Yi Qinghan. Hee, young master, what do you want to know? There's nothing in the Divine Yi realm that I don't know, as long as it hasn't happened, Old Bao said confidently. Yi Qinghan looked around, then stood up and said, Follow me to the private room. With a snap of his fingers, the waiter quickly led Yi Qinghan and the others into the private room. Yi Qinghan sat in the main seat and waved his hand. Sit anywhere you want. Today, I have a few questions to ask Old Mister. As long as you can satisfy me, I'll give you 10 pieces of Ancestor Realm Source energy with both hands. Old Bao immediately became excited. 10 pieces of Ancestor Realm Source energy, he had never earned so much in his life. I'll tell you everything I know. Old Bao restrained his excitement and said, About the Divine Yi realm, Divine Yi mountain, I want to know everything important that you know. Yi Qinghan said calmly. This. Old Bao looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise and said helplessly, Don't tell me you don't have any specific information that you want to know? I know so much information. If you want me to tell you everything, I don't know how many years it would take. Then let's get to the important things. I want to know about Godfather. Yi Qinghan stared at Old Bao and said indifferently. Hiss, Old Bao immediately exploded. This was the first time he had seen someone inquire about Godfather's information. Are you an outsider? Old Bao stood up vigilantly and asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan smiled and shook his head. He said indifferently, "No, Godfather is also my godfather, one of the ancestors. You don't have to be nervous. I just want to know more about Godfather because I have worshipped him since I was young." When old Bao looked at Yi Qinghan, there wasn't much hostility in his eyes. According to what Yi Shinshan had said, outsiders were all demons, and Yi Qinghan didn't seem to be one. News about Godfather is strictly forbidden to spread. Godfather is supreme and the greatest. Young man, you can worship him, but you can't casually inquire about or spread news about Godfather. I can't earn this ancestor realm source energy. Chapter 3071. Yishan's realm was vast and boundless, but they all had the same father, Ho-I. Every city had a huge statue. Even though Ho-I had been dead for countless years, he still accumulated merit. If he didn't die, he might have already surpassed the great sage and could even dominate everything. In this Yishan's realm, the number of humans and monsters maintained a certain balance. Humans couldn't grow stronger, and so could monsters. Following the news from Yishan's mountain, all the major families went on a pilgrimage to Yishan's mountain in order to obtain the father's favor and become his successor. Yi Qinghan put away the little white fox and only brought Sovereign Yi forward. His body was in a very sorry state, as if the two brothers were fleeing in a sorry state. The more than 10 teams that passed by turned a blind eye to Yi Qinghan. Even if he took the initiative to ask for help, hoping to make a living, they weren't willing to take him along. But if he didn't mix into the team, how could he obtain the identity of an insider? "Watch me." Sovereign Yi impatiently waved his hand, expressing his disdain for Yi Qinghan's disguise. After a few days, another team rushed towards the east. There were quite a few people in the team, most of them were handsome men and women with decent talent. They all hoped to be enveloped by the father's light, so they all came to try their luck. The leader was a big man in his 50s. His cultivation was only at the level of the Taiga Emperor, but he was also an elder of a powerful family. At this time, Sovereign Yi walked out trembling with a pitiful look. "Does your family lack 2 handymen? Since childhood, I've brought my stupid brother everywhere just to make a living. Although my brother's intelligence isn't high enough, he has enough physical work. If there's any physical work in the future, you can leave it to us brothers." Sovereign Yi had a serious expression. What the sensible child. He actually brought his stupid brother to travel everywhere. Even if he didn't have enough to eat, he didn't give up on his brother. "How about we take him in?" TCH 2 more people means 2 more mouthfuls of food. Can this kind of trash do it? I don't want him. The group of young men were very disdainful, but a few women were kind-hearted and wanted to take in Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi. Yi Qinghan did not expect that Supreme Sovereign Yi would give him the identity of a retard. In order to obtain this identity, he could only compromise and pretend to smile foolishly. Even the way he walked looked extremely abnormal. "Big brother and big sister, please be merciful. I haven't eaten for a few days. Bodhisattva has a kind heart. Father God will definitely take special care of me," Supreme Yi said with a pitiful look. The leader of the group was impatient at first, but when the name of the father was mentioned, he didn't lose his temper. After all, arguing with 2 beggars was too shameful. "Third uncle, let them join the team. I just happen to be lacking a few handymen. There's no harm in letting them follow. My Dongi branch can still provide for a few mouthfuls of rice." A clear voice rang out. At this time, everyone was shocked and turned to look at the center of the show. The leader frowned and said, Yuan, it's not a problem to accept these 2 people, but their origins are unknown and their identities have not been investigated. It's not very good to let them follow you, is it?" Dong Yuan was the only daughter of the head of the Dongi branch. Her status was high, comparable to the young master of the family. Many young masters of prestigious families came to propose marriage but were rejected. Most importantly, she was also an in-name disciple of Yi Shinshan. They're all the children of the father. "Third uncle, you don't have to be so serious. Let them follow." Dong Yuan was in the palanquin. Her voice was gentle and exceptionally pleasant. Although Yi Qinghan did not use his power to look at this young lady, he could see that this woman was naturally kind. At this moment, he could only pretend to be stupid and follow Supreme Yi. He placed his hands on Supreme Yi's shoulders and fiercely pinched the soft flesh on his neck. Supreme Yi sucked in a breath of cold air, but he did not dare to expose his pain. The corner of his mouth twitched. "Boss, I was wrong, be gentle." Sovereign Yi secretly transmitted his voice, but his tears couldn't stop flowing out. He said even more pitifully, "Wah, many thanks for your excellency's pity on us two brothers. Father God will definitely protect you." In the middle of the carriage, the curtain was gently lifted, revealing a pure white jade finger and a pair of eyes that were like the full moon. They were clear and innocent. She looked at Supreme Yi's touched expression and Yi Qinghan's stunned appearance and could not help but sigh softly. "Give them some food," Dong Yuan said again in the carriage. Although this world was big, there were not many people with high cultivation. Some people could not completely abstain from eating. After a long period of consumption, they would definitely need flesh and blood to replenish their vitality. Otherwise, it would not be beneficial for cultivation. Soon, two servants brought over a large plate of roasted meat with disdainful expressions. They said arrogantly, "Eat it, then follow us to work." Supreme Yi and Yi Qinghan did not stand on ceremony. Since they had sneaked in, they would definitely last until the end. After eating and drinking to their fill, the group continued forward. However, Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were ordered around by a few servants. Supreme Yi almost could not hold it in. They had to do all the trivial things. Brats were always the most difficult to deal with. Yi Qinghan did not mind. He did everything without saying a word. He treated it as training his temperament. Chapter 3072. Dong Yuan's personality wasn't that simple. Although she loved to listen to flattery, she was still kind. With Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi by her side, at least they didn't have to mistreat themselves anymore. If they knew that these two were the number one existences below virtuous paragons in the secondary universe, they would be so shocked that their teeth would fall out. No one would have thought that the manor head of the crazy manor would act like a fool in front of a distinguished family. Supremacy Yi was even more pitiful and had a pair of eloquent lips. He had coaxed Dong Yuan into laughing all the time and directly treated him as a trusted subordinate. Yi Qinghan only wanted to reach Yishani Mountain as soon as possible and get the Sunshot Immortal vanquishing bow. It was very difficult to act like an idiot. He really wanted to kill Supreme Yi with one slap. This group had been rushing all year round. Many of them couldn't go on any longer, but they had to grit their teeth and move on for the sake of being blessed by Ho Yi's godfather. Supreme Yi successfully coaxed the beauty and sat at the front of the carriage. Meanwhile, Yi Qinghan could only smile foolishly. He couldn't use any power and had to rely on his body to follow the carriage. Most of the Dongyi disciples had their own mounts. Even the servants had demon horses as their mounts. Only Yi Qinghan was silently moving forward. Yi Qinghan seemed to be a fool, but he knew better than anyone that the dangers around him were under his control. Just as a large group of people was passing through a valley, Yi Qinghan's eyes suddenly flashed as he sensed a terrifying demonic beast awakening in front of him. In the blink of an eye, the demonic beast charged into the group. The adventurers and mercenaries were no match for the demonic beast, and countless of them died in an instant. Blood flowed like rivers. Yi Qinghan could only sense that the demonic beast was very powerful, but he was not sure what it was. He had never seen it before. The main thing was that its strength and speed were too strong. It could instantly break through the opponent's defense and attack. Supremacy Yi Qinghan was a sage, so it was impossible for him to not sense things that were thousands of miles away. However, the others did not have the terrifying souls of Yi Qinghan and Supremacy. Moreover, this was the inner world of a virtuous paragon, so the laws of order were more rigorous. It was not like a small plane, where experts could instantly cover the entire planet with life. At this point, even the Eastern barbarian's third uncle could only cover an area of 300 to 400 miles. Any further and he would have to expend a lot of energy. He was very arrogant and was confident that the Eastern barbarians would not encounter any danger here. Therefore, he was too lazy to extend his soul 1,000 miles away. Think of a way to stall for time. Otherwise, we'll soon collide with that ferocious creature. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice to Sovereign Yi. Sovereign Yi rolled his eyes and lazily lay in front of the carriage, taking over the coachman's job. He replied faintly, "If we collide with it, so be it. It's just a progenitor realm demonic beast. I can kill it with a flip of my finger." Yi Qinghan said helplessly, "We need a reasonable identity. Do you understand? The other party is not an enemy. They are the inheritors of Ho-Yi the virtuous paragon. They don't know about our existence, but we know about their existence. Once we're exposed today, we can only go to Mount Yi by force. Many people will die." Sovereign Yi frowned and pondered. Then, he said to Dong Yuan, who was in the carriage, "Beautiful goddess, should we change our route or take a rest?" However, Dong Yuan rejected him directly. "This route is the shortest. We can't change our route without permission. As for taking a rest, there's a medium-sized city 3,000 miles away. We'll rest there. Don't talk nonsense, or third uncle will scold you again." Sovereign Yi shrugged and spread his hands, indicating that he had no other choice. The speed of the convoy was very fast. The demonic beast was still wreaking havoc, hunting human experts everywhere. Shouts could be heard endlessly. For hours later, they were only 200 miles away from the demonic beast. They could reach it with a wave of attack. Third uncle finally felt that something was wrong. He even vaguely heard cries for help and the demonic beast's cries, but he did not know what the demonic beast was. Third uncle Dong Yilun waved his hand, and a divine bow appeared in his hand. The bow was covered in runes, and it was incomparably majestic. There were more than 10 sharp arrows in the quiver on his back. "Everyone, speed up and prepare for battle," Dong Yilun said in a deep voice. More than a few hundred people took out their divine weapons and began to speed up. Yi Qinghan really wanted to inform them that this ferocious beast had already killed several progenitor realm figures. Their team was no different from delivering food to the demonic beast. At this moment, Dong Yuan actually appeared. For the first time, she stood outside the carriage. She was dressed in a blue robe and held a delicate longbow in her hand. Her body was straight and her figure was perfect. She had everything that she should have and nothing that she should not have. Dong Yuan thought that something good had happened. At this moment, she was excited and full of fighting spirit. Sovereign Yi shook his head. This girl was really not afraid of death. She did not even know her opponent and was already acting recklessly. "What should we do?" Sovereign Yi secretly transmitted his voice to Yi Qinghan as he watched the show. Yi Qinghan groaned. At this moment, he could only brace himself and leave. If there was really no other way, he could only make a move. He could not just watch these people be swallowed alive. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom. Hundreds of people did not know who their opponent was, and they charged towards the mountain on the other side unstoppably. Bang. Pooh. At this moment, a figure directly smashed through a mountain. His physical body was directly shattered, and his internal organs were completely turned into powder. He fell heavily in front of them. Dong Yilun was shocked. He took the lead and rushed forward. Seeing that the face of the corpse had been smashed and had lost all signs of life, he could tell that this expert was a half-martial ancestor. He did not expect that he would die so miserably. Dong Yilun soared into the sky. The arrow was already knocked on the bowstring, and he looked around for a target. Outside the mountain was a huge valley surrounded by mountains. The road was cut off, and the mountains had collapsed. In the valley, there was an extremely ugly monster with a mouth full of blood. It was actually eating human corpses. Even martial ancestor realm experts could not escape death. "It's a mighty ghost beast." Dong Yilun cried out in shock, and the bow in his hand directly flew out. The power of the divine crossbow was enough to annihilate an entire generation of experts. However, as soon as it neared the ugly Yao beast, it was grabbed by its claws. Its red eyes flashed with an ominous glint as it gave up on chasing after the two strongest progenitors and set its sights on Dong Yilun. Dong Yilun's hair stood on end. He shouted to the back, "It's a mighty ghost beast. Run." Mighty ghost beasts were ferocious beasts that were as strong as ghosts. They were strong enough to uproot mountains and fill seas. They could break through the defenses of large cities with a single attack. They were the nightmare of humans. No one wanted to encounter such a ferocious beast. Therefore, when Dong Yiluan said that it was a mighty ghost beast, everyone was stunned. Even Dong Yuan, who was full of fighting spirit, was stunned. Why, is there such a thing here? Dong Yuan muttered to herself. She had already given up on running. Mighty ghost beasts were vengeful. If they targeted an enemy, they would not rest until the enemy was dead. Most importantly, their speed and strength were comparable to martial ancestor realm experts. Only a sage could suppress them. At such a close distance, Yi Qinghan finally saw the ugliness of this creature. It was worthy of being called a mighty ghost beast. Bang! Boom! Before anyone could react, the divine bow in Dong Yiluan's hand was smashed into pieces. His body was like a kite with a broken string, and he crashed into the crowd, coughing up blood. In an instant, the convoy was in chaos. Don't be afraid. My big brother was born with divine strength. My big brother can defeat such an ugly thing. At this moment, Sovereign Yi suddenly stood up and vowed. Chapter 3073. There were a few hundred people in the convoy. If one person was in a mess, everyone else would be in a mess. The spirit ghost beast was a nightmare for humans. Aside from the sages, no one dared to provoke it. Dong Yuan, who was full of fighting spirit a second ago, was now frozen in place. She almost couldn't hold the bow in her hand. Her whole body was trembling, and she didn't hear what Supremacy Yi said at all. The spirit ghost beast leaped over a tall mountain and rushed to the front of the convoy. There was still a large piece of flesh on its fangs. It wasn't very big, but it was still twice the size of a human. Its 4 limbs were very powerful. Yi Qinghan's eyelids twitched. This creature's strength was endless. He might not be able to withstand its attack with just his physical strength. Everyone, don't panic. My big brother is born with divine strength. This ugly thing is not enough for him to beat, Supremacy Yi shouted as he patted his chest. However, no one listened to him. They didn't even care about Dong Yuan. They all retreated, but could they escape the spirit ghost beast's speed? Boom! At that moment, Yi Qinghan spread his wings like a rock. He stomped on the ground and appeared in front of the spirit ghost beast in the blink of an eye. Puff, cough, cough, cough. Dong Yiluan coughed up blood and retreated to Dong Yuan's side. He felt that Yi Qinghan was sending himself to death. He hurriedly said, Yuan, I'll cover you. Leave quickly. Don't worry. I know my big brother's strength. There's no need to run, Supremacy Yi said indifferently. Scram. Dong Yiluan flew into a rage. He didn't want to listen to an idiot. Bang. At that moment, Yi Qinghan suddenly grabbed the spirit ghost beast's 2 front limbs. He crossed his legs, one in front and one behind. He was actually wrestling with the spirit ghost beast. The ground collapsed. The spirit ghost beast wanted to lift Yi Qinghan up and eat him. However, it couldn't lift Yi Qinghan up even after 2 attempts. Therefore, its angry roar shattered the galaxy. Its aura suppressed Dong Yiluan so much that he couldn't breathe. Ah, look, I told you. My boss was born with divine strength. Although he was given a retarded head, he was given a perfect physical body. That ugly thing definitely won't be able to defeat my big brother. Supreme Yi immediately laughed out loud. Hiss! Dong Yiluan and Dong Yuan were scared out of their wits. They looked at Yi Qinghan, who was wrestling with the spirit ghost beast in the distance. What kind of monster is he? Dong Yiluan muttered to himself in horror. What a terrifying physical body. Dong Yuan's lips turned pale. The fact that he could still stand firm at this moment showed that his mental state was very strong. Crack, crack, crack. The earth cracked, and a chasm appeared. Yi Qinghan felt as if he was hugging a huge star, and he couldn't lift or shake off the strength ghost beast. Bang! Yi Qinghan kicked upwards with his long leg and hit the spirit ghost beast's chin. The spirit ghost beast was sent flying by the kick. However, the spirit ghost beast swung its arm and sent Yi Qinghan flying to the rear of the crowd. It hurts. Yi Qinghan grimaced. His right arm was bruised, and the claw mark on his arm looked particularly terrifying. Roar! The spirit ghost beast patted its chest, causing a tuft of fur to fall off. It stared at Yi Qinghan fiercely. It seemed that it had never seen a human who could compete with it in terms of physical strength. At this moment, Supremacy Yi shouted, "Boss, kill it. You are born with divine strength." Yi Qinghan looked like a retard, but there was wisdom hidden in the depths of his eyes. He was thinking about how to quietly eliminate this spirit ghost beast. It wasn't as if he hadn't seen such a ferocious creature with incomparable strength when he was young. The water monkey was an existence that could erupt with strength countless times stronger in the water. Did this spirit ghost beast also need a specific environment to erupt with such strength? Roar! The spirit ghost beast seemed to have been challenged. It jumped up 100 meters and pounced forward. Boom! Yi Qinghan was even more powerful. His physical body was absolutely invincible. He had never met a match at the same level as him. He flipped his hands and grabbed the spirit ghost beast's forelimbs. His long leg kicked the spirit ghost beast's abdomen. Boom! Bang bang bang! The spirit ghost beast was not to be trifled with. Its hind limbs kicked forward fiercely. Containing the profound meaning of the extreme Tao, it collided with Yi Qinghan's legs a few times. Its body tumbled in the void and directly crashed into the mountain. Crack crack crack. Yi Qinghan's hands clashed with the spirit ghost beast's forelimbs. One could even hear the sound of bones shattering. The veins all over his body bulged, and even his battle robe was shattered. Little white cloud attached to both of his wrists, increasing his strength by more than 10 times. In an instant, the situation was reversed, and he forcibly suppressed the spirit ghost beast. Boom! Yi Qinghan punched the spirit ghost beast's head. However, its defense was even more abnormal. It used its head to block the punch, and his fist was dripping with blood. Whoosh! The spirit ghost beast seemed to have felt that Yi Qinghan's strength was unrivaled. It actually flung its body and sent Yi Qinghan flying. However, it mobilized its powerful limbs, and the instantaneous jumping power produced an explosive speed that was even faster than the limit of the ancestor realm. Whoosh! The entire valley was filled with the spirit ghost beast. It held a grudge, and it didn't attack anyone else. Instead, it specifically targeted Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Dong Yuan and Dong Yilun were both dumbfounded. They had never seen such a physical body before. This kind of miracle exists? Is he really an idiot? Dong Yilun asked in shock. Sovereign Yi replied very firmly, yes. However, he can't be considered an idiot. It's just that his intelligence is a bit lacking. Normally, there won't be any major problems and he's good at work. Therefore, you must not leave us behind. We don't want wages. Where could they find such a good thing? Who would chase away such an abnormal physical body? How fast is he? Does he have a chance of winning against this spirit ghost beast? Dong Yilun asked in shock. Sovereign Yi immediately said proudly, it's nothing. You don't have to panic. When my big brother gets serious, even I am afraid. At this moment, Yi Qinghan didn't mobilize any of the profound mysteries of the laws. He was relying solely on his physical body. His eyes narrowed into a line, and his fists were clenched tightly. He closed his eyes and sensed the spirit ghost beast's specific location. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan moved his feet and drew an arc. All the strength in his body was concentrated on his right fist, waiting for a fatal blow. This spirit ghost beast seemed to be unwilling to give up until it achieved its goal. It had been beaten back by Yi Qinghan several times. This time, it revealed its ferocity and killing intent. Now was the time. Yi Qinghan was sure that the spirit ghost beast was accumulating power. At this moment, it had reached its peak. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's left hand moved to the left, and his right fist drew a 180-degree arc. He fiercely smashed backward, and the void collapsed, forming a black hole. Everything was swallowed up, and the mountains were disintegrated. Bang! Roar! The spirit ghost beast's powerful attack fiercely smashed toward Yi Qinghan. However, just as the attack reached his back, it was met with Yi Qinghan's physical body's peak attack. Crack! Roared at the spirit ghost beast's forelimbs were broken. Its body was like a broken kite. This time, it was its turn to fly backward. Bang! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and swept the black hole away. With the tearing force of the black hole, He smashed toward the spirit ghost beast's head. Bang, bang, bang. Yi Qinghan's frenzied attacks instantly turned the spirit ghost beast into a bloody mess. The spirit ghost beast was smashed until it was on the verge of death. It didn't even have the strength to resist. Sovereign Yi looked at Dong Yiluan and Dong Yuan proudly. He said proudly, "I told you. My big brother's physical body is unparalleled. He is unparalleled in the world. This ugly thing is definitely not my big brother's match." Dong Yiluan was almost certain that Yi Qinghan hadn't used any profound mysteries of the laws. It was all the power of his physical body. Chapter 3074. Outside the valley, it was a mess. Yi Qinghan suppressed the ghost beast's attack. It seemed like he didn't use any mysterious divine power, but he did use the power of the universe. However, it was too mysterious, so no one noticed when the Yishan realm was being controlled. The ghost beast used its strength to intimidate the common people. Its speed and strength far exceeded that of humans. Even progenitor realm experts couldn't compete with it. However, at this moment, the few surviving progenitor realm experts and Dong Yuan were dumbfounded. They couldn't accept this situation at all. The dignified ghost beast, a ferocious creature that could make progenitor realm experts' hair stand on end, was defeated by a retard? Dongi Elder, who is this person? A few progenitor realm experts who had escaped death appeared in front of Dong Yiluan and asked in trembling voices. Dong Yiluan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He was glad that he hadn't angered Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi when he ordered them around. Otherwise, if Yi Qinghan flew into a rage, he would probably be smashed to death. He's a servant of my family. He was born with divine power, but he didn't cultivate, Dong Yiluan said in a low voice. What? He's a servant? Dongi Elder, don't talk nonsense. A progenitor realm expert exclaimed in shock. Only then did Dong Yuan recover and quickly said, "He's not a servant. He's just my two friends. Don't have any ideas." Supreme Sovereign Yi held his head high and puffed out his chest proudly. He perfectly acted out the expression of a villain who had succeeded. Just by looking at Supreme Sovereign Yi's appearance, one could tell that they weren't experts. They were probably born with divine power. That was all. Phew! Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Then he returned to his demented appearance. With a silly smile on his face, he ran back happily to ask for praise. Dong Yuan treated the two of them as guests of honor. With such innate divine power, it was equivalent to having a sage. The expressions of the Dongi clan's people were extremely exaggerated, especially the few young men and manservants who had treated Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi like slaves. Their legs were trembling, and they were extremely terrified. "Why aren't you kneeling and admitting your mistakes?" Dong Yiluan glanced at those people and reprimanded coldly. Bang bang bang. Dozens of people knelt on the ground. Yi Qinghan was still smiling foolishly, while Supremacy Yi was intoxicated with success. With a look of disdain, he said, "I won't argue with you. Just give us more food in the future." Of course, of course." Dong Yiluan smiled sheepishly. Those progenitor realm cultivators were shocked and confused. They did not expect that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi were actually working hard in the Dongi family and did not even have enough to eat. "Two little brothers, why don't you follow this old man? I guarantee that you won't have to worry about food and clothing." An elderly ancestor realm expert immediately extended an olive branch. When the others saw this, they immediately threw out an olive branch. They really wanted to recruit Yi Qinghan and Supreme Sovereign Yi. Supreme Yi and Yi Qinghan's goal was not to have a mouthful of rice, but to have a status. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, they were not willing to move at all. "Does your family have such a great beauty?" Supreme Yi looked at Dong Yuan and asked seriously. The few progenitor realm cultivators could not help but look at each other. They did not expect Supreme Yi to be doing this for a beauty. Dong Yuan's beauty was indeed top-notch. She was ranked in the top 6 in the entire E-God realm. She was not someone who could be found anywhere, so they could only shake their heads truthfully. "Then that's enough. This beautiful bodhisattva of my family will definitely receive Father God's approval this year. We'll follow her and won't move, Supreme Yi said proudly. Yes, yes. Yi Qinghan nodded in response in all seriousness. When Dong Yiluan saw that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi had rejected him, he immediately said with a straight face, "We saved you guys, but you guys actually tried to poach us. How can you do such a thing of repaying kindness with enmity? Let's go." The convoy immediately set off. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were arranged to sit in a bright carriage, side by side with Dong Yuan. They were in the middle, and after a while, they left the few progenitor realm cultivators far behind. Dong Yuan popped her head out from time to time. With a smile on her beautiful face, she asked, "Little brothers of the Yi family, where are you from?" At this moment, Yi Qinghan was thinking about the situation of the ghost beast with his eyes closed. He did not pay attention to Dong Yuan. On the other hand, Supreme Yi said frankly, "We came from a remote mountain village. We grew up together since we were young. We have money to sleep in inns, but we don't have money to sleep in caves. We don't have a fixed place to stay. Stay at my house from now on. If you follow me, I guarantee that you'll sleep in an inn every day." Dong Yuan patted her chest and promised. Supreme Yi immediately replied, "Happily, that's great. The feeling of sleeping in an inn is really great." Along the way, Supreme Yi had been deceiving them. He said one thing after another and made it sound like he was telling the truth. Even Dong Yuan and Dong Yiluan didn't doubt him. As long as they believed that Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were from the inner realm, they wouldn't have any more conflicts with the experts on Yishan Mountain. Yi Qinghan rested for a few days and secretly sent a voice transmission. Ask her about the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow and see if she's in Yishan realm. If she is, get the specific information out of her. It's naturally best if we can quietly take away the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. After Supreme Yi received the news, his eyes flashed. Then he followed the topic and said, "Beautiful Bodhisattva, since you're an in-name disciple of Yishan Mountain, what's the strongest weapon of Yishan Mountain? Is it as powerful as my big brother's fist?" Yi Yuan laughed loudly. Even Dong Yiluan could not stop laughing, as if he had heard the most ridiculous story. Supreme Yi pretended not to know and asked, "What's so funny about this? My big brother's physical body is invincible and unparalleled in the world. Could there be an existence more powerful than my big brother? Frogs at the bottom of a well." Although Dong Yiluan despised them in his heart, he liked how short-sighted these two brothers were. Dong Yuan did not despise Supreme Yi and Yi Qinghan. She just felt that their horizons were not broadened and they had not seen the world. Yishan Mountain is a sacred mountain. It's the most orthodox place of inheritance for Godfather. The most powerful weapons can be found everywhere. There are many more that are more powerful than your big brother. As for the most powerful weapon, it's naturally Godfather's sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, Dong Yuan said proudly. Yi Qinghan's eyes suddenly opened. They shone brightly and he could not help but sit up straight. Supreme Ye's heart thumped, but his expression was still very confused. He asked thoughtfully, "Oh, Godfather's sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow is the most powerful. I'm afraid that not many people can control it. I wonder if my big brother can pull that immortal bow." Dong Yuan looked helpless and sighed. "Godfather's immortal bow is not something that anyone can control. I'm afraid that even the person chosen by Godfather may not be able to control the immortal bow, let alone your big brother. This depends on luck, not strength. Find out who has the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow," Yi Qinghan said softly through voice transmission. Chapter 3075. Yi Qinghan urgently wanted to know the whereabouts of the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. Was it in the Yishan realm? It was of utmost importance. If it wasn't, then there was no need to waste time here. Supreme Yi asked unhurriedly, "Since this sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow is so difficult to control, then who exactly is controlling it now? It must be the number one in Yishan realm, right?" Dong Yuan shook her head and said helplessly, "This immortal weapon is too far away from us. You're still young and don't understand. Only by entering Yishan Mountain and becoming an official disciple can we come in contact with it. If we can become an elder's disciple, then we might be able to see the bow. It was still an unknown. Yi Qinghan let out a breath and closed his eyes to rest. Yi Qinghan kept sleeping along the way and didn't answer. After all, it was too difficult to act like a retard. Supreme Yi was definitely a chatterbox. He could talk to Dong Yuan until she didn't want to talk anymore. As for the others, they didn't dare to talk to him. At best, they would be scolded, and at worst, they would be hammered. Whoever dared to resist would be shouted at by him. They didn't encounter any problems for the rest of their journey. If it was a small problem, the Eastern barbarians would be able to solve it. After more than a year, they finally entered the Yishan mountain. They were surrounded by main cities, and it was incomparably prosperous. Ancient palaces stood proudly, and a vast aura of righteousness filled the air. Yi Qinghan was awakened from his sleep. He gently opened the curtains and looked at the floating white clouds, blue sky, and spirit energy outside. He couldn't help but be awed by the power of Yishan Mountain. He didn't expect the world of virtuous paragons to be so terrifying. Even though it had been Tao transforming for countless years, it was still comparable to a secondary world. He had to consider the 9 second-level Saint Powers. They must have a lot of descendants and more experts than Kuang Manor. Damn, Supreme Yi looked like a country bumpkin as he looked at Yishan Mountain with purple energy coming from the east. The surrounding mountains looked like a bow with the sky as the bowstring and the earth as the body. What an amazing terrain, borrowing the power of heaven and earth. Supreme Yi was about to talk about the majesty and landscape of Yishan Mountain when he was kicked by Yi Qinghan. Supreme Exalti could not help but stick out his tongue, almost exposing himself. He quickly changed his words and said, "This place is so spectacular. It's bigger than all the cities I've seen." Dong Yuan covered her mouth and smiled faintly. She teased, "You've only seen villages and tribes. This is the largest main city in God Yi's realm. It occupies an area of several tens of thousands of miles. Even strength ghost beasts don't dare to approach this place." Oh, Sovereign Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. He looked around, and that sneaky light began to appear again. However, he was kicked again by Yi Qinghan. This time, it was somewhat restrained. His serious appearance made him look like an ignorant youth. "You reap what you sow." Yi Qinghan snorted coldly and said no more. "Come down quickly. Let's find a good inn. Then, I'll show you what the majesty and dignity of a main city is." Dong Yuan jumped down from the carriage, and those youths immediately surrounded her. They didn't dare to say anything along the way. Now that they surrounded her, it seemed like they still wanted to follow her. "You guys don't need to follow me. I'll take Brother Yi and his 2 friends around. We don't need anyone to disturb us." Dong Yuan waved her small hand and chased away those youths who were in her way. Those youths were very dissatisfied, but they didn't dare to get angry at Dong Yuan. They could only bear this grudge on Supreme Yi Qinghan. After all, they didn't dare to look for him. His fist was an existence that could kill strength ghost beasts. The few of them probably wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Exalti got down from the carriage and looked around for a long time. Then, they followed Dong Yuan, the host, into the main city. The youths from the Dongyi branch looked at the backs of Yi Qinghan and Supreme Exalti with resentment. They were extremely displeased. "Let's find a chance to teach that Supreme Exalti a lesson." "I don't like that cheap look of his," a handsome youth said gloomily. "That's right. He's probably not as strong as us. How dare he flirt with the most beautiful fairy of our Dongyi branch? He should take a piss and look at himself in the mirror. He doesn't even have the right to marry our servant girl," another youth said immediately. "Hee, are you guys stupid? Our Yuanyuan doesn't just have 1 or 2 followers. There's no lack of rich and powerful families and talents from the sacred mountain chasing after her. We can totally kill Supreme Exalti with a borrowed knife and torture him to death," a youth with malicious eyes said softly as he licked the corner of his lips. The main city was connected in all directions. One could enter the main city through any of the gates. There were many ancient palaces and paths that led to the heavens. They were filled with veins and mysteries. Most of the people in the main city had similar cultivation levels. There weren't many true experts. Dong Yuan's level of cultivation was already considered quite good. The true experts all hid in the dark or hid their auras and kept a low profile. Yi Qinghan kept glancing at the sacred mountain. That was where the highest ruler of the God Yi realm resided. If the sun-shooting immortal destroying Bao wasn't there, who knew when he would be able to find it again? However, Dong Yuan didn't pay any attention to this silly Yi Qinghan. She just pointed at some ancient buildings and introduced them to the two of them one by one. Supreme Exalt Ye's eyes wandered around. He kept rubbing his nose and memorizing some places. He was tempted. Let's find a chance to slip away. We'll take the risk and go up the sacred mountain. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice. Supreme Exalt Ye nodded thoughtfully. However, Dong Yuan definitely wouldn't agree to leave at this time. They had to do it at night without anyone noticing. However, it was only noon, and troubles were endless. Not long after the three of them walked into the city, a handsome young man holding a fan walked up to them. He was dressed in white and looked like a son of heaven. He had a warm expression on his face. He slightly performed an ancient aristocratic etiquette and said gently, "Junior Sister Yuanyuan, long time no see. I miss you very much. Why don't we have a meal together today? It just so happens that I have a meal. When I heard that you were back, I specially came to welcome you." Dong Yuan frowned. She wasn't willing to accept this kind of meal. These people were all hedonistic sons of rich families. They were all vulgar, but their statuses were very high. It wasn't good to offend them. Therefore, she didn't want to attend this kind of meal if she could. "Greetings, senior brother Dong Qin. I really don't dare to disturb your meal. You can just find a female companion. I'm still busy, so I won't be going." Dong Yuan thought for a while and firmly refused. However, Dong Qin confidently stroked his jade fan and said indifferently, "Junior sister, I made a bet with them. They will definitely invite you. This time, it won't just be some hedonistic sons of rich families. There will also be 3 of the top 10 experts of the sacred mountain and 4 of the top 10 beauties of the sacred mountain. If junior sister Yuanyuan doesn't go, the entire meal will be overshadowed." Yi Qinghan's thoughts surged. He stretched out his hand and pointed at Supreme Exaltee. He secretly transmitted his voice, "Why aren't you encouraging her to go? I still want to go alone." After Supreme Exaltee received the instruction, he immediately said with a smile, "Beautiful Bodhisattva, you should go and take a look. You can suppress the other beauties with your appearance and become the champion of the beauties. As for me and Big Brother, we'll just walk around." Dong Yuan wasn't willing to let Yi Qinghan and Supreme Exalt Yi go alone. If they got lost, it would be a loss for the Dong Yi clan. "No, I don't want to attend those meals. It's too restrictive," Dong Yuan said firmly. Chapter 3076. Dong Yuan rejected him directly, not giving him any chance. Yi Qinghan secretly pursed his lips. He had no choice but to accompany Dong Yuan. He would exhaust her during the day so that she could have some peace at night. "Divine Bird, suggest that we go along. Say that you want to see the world." Yi Qinghan transmitted his voice helplessly. Without waiting for Supremacy Yi to speak, Dong Qin glanced at Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi. Especially when he saw the dazed expression in Yi Qinghan's eyes, he could not help but frown and ask, "Junior Sister Yuanyuan, who are these two? They don't seem to be normal. Do you want me to ask an elder on the holy mountain to take a look? He's a divine doctor whose name shakes the entire E-God realm. He specializes in treating difficult and complicated diseases, especially those whose souls have been injured. He has never failed in his treatment. His disciple, the master apothecary, is also at the dinner party. I can introduce him to him. Perhaps the master apothecary can treat him himself." Dong Yuan was immediately energized when she heard that. If Yi Qinghan could cultivate, coupled with his physical body, the Dong Yi lineage would have a sage. When that happened, the Dong Yi lineage would become a rich and powerful family. Supremacy Yi pretended to be overjoyed. If he could sneak into the holy mountain through these young people, then everyone would be happy. "Immortal, please save my big brother. I'll definitely repay you in the future," Supremacy Yi said while bowing repeatedly. Dong Yuan also bowed and said, "Senior brother Dong Qin, please help me introduce him." I'm just an in-name disciple. I really don't have the right to ask an elder for help. Dong Qing nodded proudly. He was one of the 7 disciples of the Holy Mountain's great elder. His status was only second to a few others. Dong Yuan quickly extended her hand and explained, Supremacy Yi, senior brother Dong Qing is the 7th disciple of the Holy Mountain's great elder. His status is very high. Back then, he was the one who recommended me to become an in-name disciple. If he can save your big brother, he might be able to return to normal. Supremacy Yi said, happily, good. My elder brother was beaten up when he was young and his soul was injured. Until now, he still can't recover. He only remembers this young brother of mine. If beautiful Bodhisattva and exalted immortal can save him, I'll definitely treat you guys to a big meal. Dong Yuan was also filled with anticipation. She said to Dong Qing, Senior brother Dong Qing, these 2 are my maternal relatives. The one whose soul was injured is called Yi Qinghan, and he's my older cousin. This little fellow is called Supreme Sovereign Yi, and he's my younger cousin. I hope senior brother Dong Qing will take good care of him. Dong Qing smiled faintly, the corners of his mouth curling up into a smile. He raised his arms slightly and said, that will depend on junior sister Yuanyuan's performance. Dong Yuan's face turned slightly red. She bowed and said, Senior apprentice brother Dong Qing, you must be joking. Men and women should not touch each other. Senior apprentice brother, please respect your junior apprentice sister. Dong Qing smiled awkwardly and gestured with his hand. Junior sister Yuanyuan, I was just joking. Let's go. Everyone is waiting for you. I said that I would definitely bring you there. Everyone is looking forward to it. Dong Yuan was one of the top 10 beauties and was ranked 6th. As for the top 3, 2 of them were saintesses of the Holy Mountain. They had high statuses and no one dared to blaspheme them. Dong Qing did not dare to do so either. Therefore, Dong Yuan, who had no status, rose in status. Many people wanted to pursue her. However, in terms of status, Dong Qing was still the most powerful. Dong Yuan's face turned slightly red. She knew herself well. She did not like to climb up the social ladder. Otherwise, her status would be very awkward. However, her clansmen hoped that she could become a phoenix. Therefore, they had been choosing her all these years. Dong Qing was also one of the candidates. However, she did not feel moved. The group of 4 quickly passed through the streets. With Dong Qing leading the way, no one dared to stop them. They were very fast. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they appeared in the main city's inner city. This place was even more prosperous. Sovereign Ye's eyes almost popped out. This place was filled with treasures. There were many resources that could not be found in the outside world. In the virtuous world, inheritances had never been cut off. This included treasures. Many resources had already disappeared in the original universe or the secondary universe. Even if there were, they were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. However, there were still many here. This was because the people here knew how to proceed step by step and recycle them. Otherwise, it would be no different from killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. Gulp, Sovereign Ye's gaze revealed his greed. His gaze was like that of a person entering a city from the mountains. Everything he saw was new and fresh. Dong Yuan coughed dryly and gestured for Sovereign Yi to restrain himself. However, he was already immersed in these treasures, so he ignored her existence. Cough cough, Dong Yuan was very embarrassed and quickly said, Senior brother Dong Qing, the 2 of them grew up in a mountain village and have never seen the world. When it comes to the meal, I'm worried that there will be an accident. Dong Qing said indifferently, who wouldn't give face to junior sister Yuanyuan? Everyone has some poor relatives. It's okay, I'll explain it to everyone. Therefore, Dong Yuan was on tenterhooks. She was afraid that Yi Qinghan would cause some big trouble. If Yi Qinghan beat some of the young masters of the rich and powerful families half to death, then there would be a big problem. My cousin was born with divine strength and has a bad temper. I hope that senior brother can restrain them and not tease my cousin, Dong Yuan reminded him. Born with divine strength? Dong Qing looked indifferently at Yi Qinghan. There was no fluctuation of the power of laws or order on his body. How strong could his pure strength be? Junior sister, just enjoy this meal. I'll take all the responsibility for any accidents. Whoever causes trouble will have to bear the consequences. Wouldn't you be a big fool to argue with a fool? Dong Qing said disdainfully. My brother is not a fool. Sovereign Yi snorted. The corner of Dong Qing's mouth twitched. He didn't want to provoke Dong Yuan's cousin, so he said, Sorry, I said the wrong thing. Your brother is indeed not a fool. It's just that his soul is injured. There will be a chance for him to recover in the future. Only then did Sovereign Yi nod in satisfaction. Not long after, the four of them arrived at the most prosperous area of the inner city at the foot of the sacred mountain. Those who could come here were all influential people. Even ordinary rich people couldn't come. Yi Qinghan covered the area with his divine sense, memorizing all the nearby streets in case he needed them. His divine sense was more than powerful. As long as he didn't come into contact with the sages, there would be no problem. Sovereign Yi was also searching silently, extending his search up the sacred mountain. Yishanshan was the highest peak of the Yishanshan realm. It was also the peak of power. Ho Yi's statue stood in the east of Yishanshan. It was as tall as the sky and held a huge, sun-shooting, immortal vanquishing bow. It could be seen clearly from the other side of the mountain. Yi Qinghan looked at the statue and the huge bow. His eyes flashed with a strange light, but he quickly returned to normal. At this moment, Dong Qing and Dong Yuan stopped in front of a luxurious restaurant. The Drunken God residence was the most luxurious restaurant in the Yishanshan realm. Here, even gods could only lie down drunk and treat this place as their home. The biggest private room has been booked by the son of the God of Fortune for 3 months. This guy is really rich. I can't even afford to book for a day, but he can book for 3 consecutive months. Dong Qing smiled bitterly and sighed. Chapter 3077. There were several hundred private rooms in the huge Drunken God residence. The minimum cost of the largest private room was almost the entire fortune of a small family. Those who could really afford it could probably spend 3 to 5 small families in a day without a problem. The road was paved with gold, and the stairs were made of white jade. Even the paintings on the walls were made by masters. Such a luxurious restaurant was rarely seen, even in all the secondary universes. Yi Qinghan was a little surprised. He had really underestimated this virtuous sage world. Sovereign Yi swallowed his saliva and looked at the ornaments made of godly treasures. His eyes shone with a thieving light. It was obviously not Dong Yuan's first time in such a big place, but she didn't look sideways. She also showed greed and anticipation when she saw these treasures, so she tried her best to maintain etiquette. The people passing by were all rich and powerful, but when they saw Dong Qing and Dong Yuan, they would all salute and greet them. They didn't want to offend these powerful people. Many people were paying attention to Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi because the two of them weren't wearing tattered clothes. Instead, they were wearing the clothes of servants. They didn't expect that there would be servants coming in and out of this place. If they hadn't been brought in by Dong Yuan and Dong Qing, they would have been kicked out long ago. Soon, the four of them appeared on the middle floor of the building. The entire floor was filled with private rooms. Even the stairs were winding. In the private rooms on this floor, other than beauties, there were also handsome men. All of them were peerless in their generation and were as handsome as jade. As soon as Dong Qing and Dong Yuan appeared, everyone stood out. 100 flowers vied with each other as if they wanted to suppress the others. There were 3 beauties with peerless appearances, and their every move carried the aura of nobility. They were rare in the world and could be ranked among the top in all the secondary universes. They were accompanied by several young men with extremely strong cultivations. All of them were arrogant, and their auras almost surpassed Dong Qing's. Yi Qinghan's sluggish eyes roughly swept over them. He could confirm the identities of 2 people. One was wearing gold and silver, and even his ornaments were rare treasures. This person was definitely the son of the God of Fortune and was known as the Little God of Fortune. As for the other one, his body was filled with a medicinal fragrance, but his fingertips were black. He must have been poisoned for many years. He should be the divine alchemist's disciple, master apothecary. As for the 3 great beauties, They were definitely the 5th, 7th, and 9th beauties. As for their names, Yi Qinghan was not interested in them at all. These vulgar women only knew how to compete with each other in terms of beauty. They were even worse than Dong Yuan. Their cultivation was not bad. At least half of them were in the Taigu Emperor realm, and 3 were in the Ancestor realm, as expected of the virtuous sage world. In terms of the younger generation, they were much stronger than the sage world. These people were definitely not the pinnacle of the younger generation in God Yi's realm. Yi Qinghan was deeply shocked. If a young sage had appeared, he might even understand. At this time, Dong Qing smiled, the pride in his eyes self-evident. How is it? I said that I would personally go and invite junior sister Yuan. Little god of fortune, do you want to punish yourself by drinking 3 cups of the drunken god residence's strongest wine? Dong Qing laughed loudly. The little god of fortune was round like a little fatty. At this time, he looked at Dong Yuan with dissatisfaction and said in a muffled voice, Junior sister Yuan, you don't give me any face. I invited you to join us 3 times in a row, and you refused. This year, when senior brother Dong Qing made his move, you immediately came. Aren't you deliberately slapping my face? Senior brother little god of fortune, please don't take offense. Today, I came because I have something to do. In these past few years, I have indeed rarely participated in these kinds of banquets. It's not that I don't want to give you all face, it's because I really don't know how to socialize. Instead, I'll make everyone unhappy. Dong Yuan hurriedly replied. Dong Yuan did not dare to offend anyone here because everyone's background was greater than hers. When everyone heard this, they immediately roared with laughter. It seemed that Dong Qing's face was not big enough. They immediately felt much better. The little god of fortune laughed even harder. He bared his teeth and said to Dong Qing, Senior brother Dong Qing, if I went to invite her this time, junior sister Yuan would also come. This time doesn't count. Dong Qing was very embarrassed. It seemed that this great beauty really did not know how to socialize. Everyone ignored Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi, but the 2 of them would not ignore themselves. The 2 of them sat down and started eating. Moreover, they specifically chose exotic delicacies that they had never eaten before. In a short while, the good dishes on the table were wiped clean. In an instant, the entire private room fell silent. Dong Yuan was even more dumbfounded. She did not expect Sovereign Yi and Yi Qinghan to be so impolite. Delicious, delicious. Yi Qinghan touched his mouth and ran directly to another table. Cough, cough. Dong Qing looked at everyone's disdainful and dissatisfied expressions and hurriedly explained, Everyone, these 2 people are junior sister Yuan's cousins. Because their souls were severely injured, they are slightly demented. Please don't mind them. This time, junior sister Yuan came because she hoped that senior brother Master Apothecary could help treat her. At this moment, the young man with jet black fingers had a strange look in his eyes. He stared coldly at Yi Qinghan. The character of a person who refined medicine had always been like this. They treated everyone in the world as experimental subjects. He wanted to save people not purely because he wanted to save them, but because he wanted to use them as experimental subjects. Whoosh! The master apothecary almost teleported to Yi Qinghan's side. This speed shocked Yi Qinghan. It was also because of this instinctive reaction that the master apothecary believed that this person was truly a demented person. The master apothecary pressed his 5 fingers on Yi Qinghan's head. Just as he was about to react, Yi Qinghan raised his fist and was about to punch him. However, he was stopped by Dong Yuan. Cousin, don't resist. This senior brother is helping to heal your soul. It will be good for you. Dong Yuan looked at the master apothecary apologetically and said embarrassedly, Senior brother apothecary, please don't take offense. My cousin's brain is not working well. He can't differentiate between friend and foe. The master apothecary was not a saint. He also had a heart of beauty. Since Dong Yuan had apologized, how could he not appreciate it? He smiled slightly, but it was filled with coldness. It's fine. Junior sister, step aside. Let me take a look. The master apothecary's divine sense covered Yi Qinghan's soul. How could his soul be compared to Yi Qinghan's? Yi Qinghan had deliberately weakened his soul, just like an ordinary person. There were indeed some injuries in his soul. Moreover, they had injured his foundation. However, this was all a facade that Yi Qinghan had deliberately created. The master apothecary continued to test Yi Qinghan, as if he was treating Yi Qinghan as an experimental subject. He attacked him several times, not caring whether or not Yi Qinghan was in pain. Yi Qinghan pretended to resist, but Dong Yiyuan kept comforting him, so there was no big mess. After a long time, the master apothecary stopped attacking and fed Yi Qinghan a soul-type divine pill. However, it still did not work. This is really strange. Logically speaking, this should not have happened. If the progenitor or the sage had made a move, he should have died long ago. If the sage and the progenitor had not made a move, I would have definitely healed the injuries on his soul. The master apothecary frowned. This kind of setback did not feel good, especially in front of so many people. Yi Qinghan secretly smiled. He did not want the master apothecary to heal his injuries at all. He only wanted to borrow Dong Qing and the master apothecary's hands to ascend the sacred mountain. Sovereign Yi pretended to be disappointed and said, "Even the dignified master apothecary could not heal my big brother's soul. It seems that there is no one in this world who can heal my big brother." Nonsense. When my master, the divine medicine, makes a move, there is no injury in this world that cannot be healed. The master apothecary coldly reprimanded. Dong Yiyuan immediately bowed and said, "Senior brother apothecary, please help me introduce him. This cousin of mine was born with divine strength. If he cannot cultivate, it will be a great loss to my Yishan realm." Chapter 3078. Dong Yuan's words were met with disdain. Innate divine strength? 500 kilograms of strength? 10,000 kilograms of strength? To the Taigu Emperor realm, this kind of strength was like an ant, not worth mentioning. Junior sister Yuan, how much strength can your innate divine strength cousin unleash in one punch? A Taigu Emperor realm youth asked in a provocative tone. Dong Yuan didn't dare to speak carelessly. After all, everyone here was a direct descendant of the sacred mountain. Those who didn't have a certain status couldn't enter this circle. Moreover, once Yi Qinghan's true strength was exposed, there would definitely be many people fighting over it. The sacred mountain wasn't peaceful either. Several elders were already fighting with each other. However, Sovereign Yi wasn't afraid of anything. At this moment, he replied proudly, "I can crush you with one punch." "Stinking brat, do you want to die?" The youth reprimanded coldly with an ominous glint in his eyes. However, Sovereign Yi was like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. He raised his eyebrows and asked in return, "You're not allowed to speak the truth? My elder brother was born with innate divine strength. He killed a strength ghost beast with one punch. Even your master might not be a match for you." Hiss. Dong Yuan sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly pulled Sovereign Yi back, not allowing him to continue speaking. She quickly apologized. "Senior brothers and sisters, please don't be angry. This cousin of mine hasn't seen much of the world and speaks without thinking. Everyone, please don't hold a grudge against him." Some people snorted coldly. If it weren't for Dong Yuan's face, they definitely wouldn't have been so polite. The sacred mountain was the strongest, so this kind of arrogance was normal. Yi Qinghan didn't look down on the E-God realm. After all, there weren't many forces like the Kuang Manor. If he died, the Kuang Manor might also become like this with the passage of time. Dong Qing saw that the situation was going out of control and hurriedly mediated. He said cheerfully, "Everyone, don't ruin the atmosphere because of a child's words. We're gathered here today to celebrate the upcoming grace ceremony. Father God's once in 10,000 years grace ceremony is about to begin. It's not good to see blood. Otherwise, my master won't be happy." The great elder still had some face. As soon as Dong Qing mentioned the great elder's name, everyone shut their mouths and sat down. The ones sitting in the center were the strongest, the ones with the highest status, or one of the top 10 beauties. Dong Qing, the little god of fortune, the master apothecary, and the two progenitors were all second elder and third elder's men. In addition to the four beauties of Dong Yuan, Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi were just about to sit next to Dong Yuan when they were forcefully pulled out by two young men. "You two are really idiots. Is this table for the two of you to sit at?" a gloomy youth angrily rebuked. Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi were both baffled. They looked around and realized that there were no more seats. However, there was a table in the corner that was completely unoccupied. "Let's go. No one is sitting at that table. We can eat more," Yi Qinghan said calmly. He was not angry at all. Supremacy Yi shrugged. He reached out and grabbed the best divine fruits on the table. "So be it. I don't care to sit in the center." Supremacy Yi walked to the corner disdainfully. The others looked at Supremacy Yi. This was not the first time this guy had caused trouble. They just wanted to see if Dong Qing and the others would flip out. The little god of fortune was indeed a rich man. In order not to offend Dong Yuan, he waved his hand and said indifferently, "It's fine. Although there aren't many of these things, I can still afford them." Dong Yuan looked embarrassed. She lowered her head and bowed. "Senior brother little god of fortune, sorry for the trouble." The little god of fortune did not have much, but he had a lot of money. His family's wealth was comparable to that of a country. Everyone was sitting in their seats, but there was a beautiful woman who kept glancing at the corner where Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi were. She was quite shrewd. She was the eldest princess of the Situ family, Situ Shuing. She was ranked 5th among the top 10 beauties. She had been good at scheming all her life and had never miscalculated. Situ Shui Tang's eyes were big and round with long eyelashes, just like a snow doll. Her thin lips always carried a faint smile while her eyes were constantly moving. Even though she was just sitting there, her eyes took everyone's emotions into consideration. The way Dong Yuan looks at Yi Qinghan is obviously different. It's a kind of greed and possessiveness. With her beauty and temperament, even Dong Qing might not be her final choice. She wouldn't want to possess a fool who has never cultivated, unless Yi Qinghan's so-called innate divine strength is really terrifying. Based on my observation just now, Yi Qinghan has delicate features, and there's a resolute and dignified look between his brows. It's impossible that he has never cultivated. Looking at the purity in the depths of his eyes, he's definitely not a fool. There's no doubt that this person is faking it. Situ Shuetong's lips curled up. She took a sip of the immortal wine. In just a few breaths of time, she had actually deduced everything. This kind of observation and calculation ability was unprecedented. Yi Qinghan also noticed Situ Shuetong out of the corner of his eye. Situ Shuetang and Yi Qinghan exchanged glances. Situ Shuetang actually smiled and nodded. However, her movement was very weak. No one else would have noticed that the 5th most beautiful woman in the world, Situ Shuetang, would smile and nod at a fool. Yi Qinghan was also shocked. Even with my exquisite performance, she actually saw through me. Was it a coincidence? Or was it a test? Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He acted even more like a fool. He ate without restraint and directly grabbed the food. He didn't want his plan to be ruined by a woman. The other people chatted about topics completely different from Yi Qinghan's social circle, so he didn't want to talk too much. Halfway through the meal, Situ Shuetong actually stood up, picked up a cup of immortal wine, and walked directly to Yi Qinghan, who was sitting in the corner. "Him?" Everyone was stunned. Many men thought that Situ Shuetong was walking towards them. They all stood up and greeted her with smiles. Unfortunately, all of them sat down awkwardly. Situ Shuetong walked gracefully with a smile on her face. She was devastatingly beautiful. Without looking sideways, she walked directly to the center of Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi. "Brother Yi, what's your name?" Situ Shuetong asked crisply. Supreme Sovereign Yi changed the topic and approached Situ Shuing. He took a deep whiff of her fragrance and grinned. "Beautiful Bodhisattva, you're so beautiful. I'm Supreme Sovereign Yi, Supreme Sovereign as in Supreme Sovereign. This is my big brother, Yi Qinghan. He's not very good with words, so if you have any questions, just ask me." Slap. Situ Shuetong reached out with her jade-like hands and pushed Sovereign Ye's face back. Her eyes never left Yi Qinghan's. She was trying to verify her conjecture. Yi Qinghan smiled foolishly and reached out to touch Sidu Xuetong's jade-like fingers. He said honestly, "Beautiful big sister? My name is Yi Qinghan." Sidu Xuetong blushed and quickly retracted her hand. Bang! An ancestor realm expert was furious. Situ Xuetong was someone he had set his mind on. No one was allowed to touch her. Chapter 3079. That ancestor realm expert status was no small matter. He was one of the 10 great elites of the younger generation, and had hopes of becoming the Holy Master's disciple in name. Even Dong Qing couldn't afford to offend him. Once he was enraged, the entire room fell into deathly silence. Dong Yuan's heart skipped a beat. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so bold. Dong Qing's face was also filled with dissatisfaction. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so lustful even though he was a little stupid. He actually dared to lust after the 5th-ranked Situ Xuetang. Such a blasphemous act was something he didn't dare to do. However, Situ Xuetong waved her hand and said, "It's fine. Don't take it to heart. I'm the one who wants to chat with little brother Yi." Yi Qinghan didn't care at all. He stared at Situ Xuetong and smiled foolishly. Even a sage wouldn't suspect him. However, Situ Xuetong's deduction wasn't only based on Yi Qinghan's appearance, but also Dong Yuan's attitude. Situ Xuetong smiled and pressed down Yi Qinghan's hand while stroking Yi Qinghan's black hair with her other hand. "Little brother Yi, don't be afraid. We're not hostile." This action made Qinbei's eyes burn with anger. Situ Xuetong was so noble. When had she ever treated a man like this? Moreover, he was a fool. Situ Xuetong was very good at reading people. No matter how good Yi Qinghan's eyes were, he didn't change his appearance. With this unique appearance, as long as he wore slightly better clothes, no one would doubt that he was the sacred lord. Fortitude, vicissitudes, and domineering aura weren't just visible in his eyes. Situ Xuetong was now even more convinced of her deduction. Yi Qinghan grabbed the hand stroking his forehead and held it in place. He turned his head slightly and put his mouth on Situ Xuetong's hand. He sniffed lightly and said with an intoxicated expression, "Beautiful Bodhisattva, you're so beautiful. With you here, I'm not afraid." Boom. Qianbei was so angry that he couldn't control himself anymore. He shattered the table and stepped in front of Yi Qinghan, raising his hand to kill Yi Qinghan. But at that moment, Yi Qinghan took advantage of the situation and pretended to lie in Situ Xuetong's arms in fear. "Beautiful Bodhisattva, I'm scared." Yi Qinghan was deliberately trying to disgust Situ Xuetong. She was too clever, but her cleverness had backfired on her. Who were Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi? They were demon-level existences in the secondary universe. Even a sage would tremble if they stomped their feet. Supreme martial artist Yi clapped and cheered, "Wow, a talented man and a beautiful woman. Beautiful sister Bodhisattva and my big brother are a good match." Wu Qinbei was unable to kill Yi Qinghan. He was afraid that he would accidentally injure Situ Xuetong, so he changed the direction of his attack and slapped Supremacy Yi instead. The space was almost torn apart, and a vortex formed in the air. It even activated the defense of the entire restaurant. Supreme Yi pretended to jump in fright and hid under the table. He hugged Situ Xuetong's leg and said in fear, "Beautiful Bodhisattva sister, save me. There's a thief trying to kill your brother-in-law." Situ Xuetong froze on the spot. She did not know whether to move or not. Embarrassment and anger filled her face. "Qianbei, it's all your fault." Situ Xuetong quickly stood up, but Yi Qinghan was lying in her arms. His face was completely stuck to the mountain peak, and there was no way to get rid of him. Supreme martial artist Yi was also hugging her slender leg, almost hanging on it. "Beautiful Bodhisattva, I'm scared." Yi Qinghan and Supreme martial artist Yi cried out at the same time. Qianbei's eyes were burning with killing intent. He was trembling all over, but the angrier he was, the closer Yi Qinghan and Supreme martial artist Yi were to him. They were unwilling to let go. Situ Xuetong could not get rid of him, so she could not help but roar, "Qianbei, get away from me." Qianbei took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and immediately took a few steps back. Why aren't you guys letting go? Situ Shuetong had never lost control of her emotions before. She was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She wanted nothing more than to lift Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Yi up and throw them out. The fear on Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Ye's faces had yet to dissipate, which made Dong Yuan very unhappy. If Situ Shuetong had not deliberately gone to Yi Qinghan to tease him, Chen Bei would not have been so angry. If Chen Bei had not been angry, the two brothers would not have been so afraid. Everyone, you're all rich and powerful. We lowly people can't afford to be friends with you. My cousin may be stupid, but I'm not. Situ Shuetong, don't act recklessly just because you're beautiful. You even teased a fool. Don't you feel ashamed? Dong Yuan flew into a rage out of humiliation. Her relationship with Situ Shuetong was already bad, and today, it just happened to explode. She pulled Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Yi with her and was about to walk out. Situ Shuetong had tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. She did not expect her verification to end up in such a humiliating situation. Chen Bei was even more furious. His murderous intent enveloped Yi Qinghan. You can leave if you want, but you have to leave behind every part of Sister Shuetong's body that the two of them touched. That face and that brat's hands, cut them off. Otherwise, I'll take their lives today, Chen Bei said coldly. Chen Bei did not care about Dong Yuan. He only wanted Situ Shuetong. The others were not worth mentioning. Dong Yuan could not help but look nervously at Dong Qing and the little god of fortune. If the two of them did not speak today, Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Yi would probably really die here. In the vicinity of Yishan Mountain, no one dared to offend Chen Bei, and no one dared to do so. Dong Qing was also extremely angry at Yi Qinghan and Supreme Martial Artist Ye's actions. However, he could not blame Yi Qinghan entirely. Situ Shuetong clearly knew that Yi Qinghan was not smart enough, yet she still went to tease him. Wasn't that just asking for trouble? As for Chen Bei, he was the main culprit. How could he be so calculative with a child and a fool? Was this something a progenitor would do? Brother Chen, everyone is at fault here. Let's each take a step back and let the two of them apologize. Then we'll forget about this matter. What do you think? Dong Qing suggested in a low voice. The murderous intent in Chen Bei's eyes had reached its peak. It was almost impossible to make him give in now. Impossible. Junior brother Dong Qing, you won't go against me for 2 ants, right? Chen Bei asked ambiguously. The corner of Dong Qing's mouth twitched. He had not expected that inviting Dong Yuan would cause such a huge conflict. The little god of fortune had an indifferent look on his face. It didn't matter to him who gave in and who didn't, so he shrugged his shoulders and said, "You guys are the ones who caused this, so you can discuss it among yourselves. However, I feel that we should be lenient wherever possible. Yi Qinghan wasn't in the wrong in the first place. What do you think? The cause is junior sister Shuetang, so let junior sister Shuetang make the decision." Situ Shuetong took a deep breath and looked at Chen Bei's angry eyes. She knew that he was jealous, but she could not blame him. After all, she also needed a few strong followers, and Chen Bei was one of them. As for Yi Qinghan, she still could not control him. However, in her heart, she warned herself that this person was definitely not that simple. All right, senior brother Chen Bei. This matter is my fault. I shouldn't have come. Don't be angry. I'll treat you to a meal alone another day as an apology, okay? Situ Shuetong said gently. Even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. Chen Bei was not a hero. He was even a layman. Since Situ Shuetong had said so, if he continued to cause trouble, it would be counterproductive. Today, for junior sister Shuetong's sake, I'll let the two of you go. Don't offend me again. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead, Chen Bei threatened coldly. Situ Shuetong's fingertips trembled slightly. She turned to look at Yi Qinghan's performance. Although his acting was superb, it could not escape her eyes. Yi Qinghan, I know you're not stupid. Tonight, we'll meet at the eastern peak outside the main city. If you dare not come, I'll make you regret it, Situ Shuetong secretly threatened. Yi Qinghan pretended not to know. He still looked terrified, which almost made Situ Xuetong explode. Chapter 3080. In the private room, because Situ Xuetong took the initiative to give in, Chen Bei had no choice but to give in. Dong Yuan then fled the private room with Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi in a sorry state. She was drenched in sweat and did not dare to stay for another moment. Dong Yuan pulled the two of them and ran out of the inner city. Her jade peaks were trembling, and she had yet to react. You two are really daring. The strongest in our entire Dongyi lineage is only at the peak of the progenitor realm. There are only 3 progenitors in the entire lineage. Chen Bei and a few young people can destroy us. You two actually dared to provoke Situ Xuetong and Chen Bei. You're really tired of living. You're not allowed to come out in the future, Dong Yuan said in a trembling voice. Supreme Yi rolled his eyes and snorted. What are you afraid of? My big brother's physical body is invincible and unparalleled. Those rookies are not even enough to be smashed by my big brother's fist. Sigh. Dong Yuan smiled bitterly. You don't understand. They aren't just individuals. They represent the entire sacred mountain. A slight move in one part will affect the entire group. There are many people in their circle. If they are grouped together, offending one of them is equivalent to offending everyone. You also have to offend the elders of the sacred mountain. Don't be afraid. Be good. I was just teasing them. Who told that woman to bully me? Yi Qinghan pretended to be proud and comforted her. Dong Yuan was full of regret. She really should not have brought Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi out. Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi were in a good mood after teasing Situ Xuetong and Chen Bei. At this moment, they were walking back proudly. However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan was also terrified. He could not have predicted that someone would be able to see through his identity, let alone that it was a woman. This bitch. I must teach her a lesson tonight and let her know how powerful I am. Otherwise, she'll think that I'm easy to bully. A fierce light flashed in Yi Qinghan's eyes. The 3 of them had their own thoughts along the way. After wandering around the main city for a while, they returned to the inn where the Dongyi lineage was. Both Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi Qinghan had their own rooms. Once they returned to their rooms, Yi Qinghan closed the doors and windows as he pondered. How did that little girl see through my problem? Why does she want to see me? Could it be that she has taken a liking to me? That shouldn't be the case. I haven't been handsome enough these few days. Yi Qinghan sighed softly. Yi Qinghan looked at himself in the mirror and stroked his chin. His eyes were flawless. If one were to really look at it, it would definitely be because of his flawless face. Being handsome is a sin. Yi Qinghan came to the conclusion that something must have gone wrong. Sigh. Yi Qinghan lay on his bed, and his divine sense began to spread outwards, covering most of the outer city and continuously extending deeper. However, the further he went, the more difficult it became. This was the world of the virtuous paragons, not the secondary universe. Wanting to use one's divine sense to cover hundreds of millions of kilometers was nearly impossible. If I go any deeper, I'm afraid I'll alarm the sages. Yi Qinghan secretly said to himself, I'm afraid I'll have to make a trip to Yishanshan. However, I've offended both Dong Qing and Chen Bei today. It seems that I'll have to go through Situ Xuetong. I just don't know if she'll be able to help me. Yi Qinghan silently pondered and decided to dress up again. If it really didn't work, then he would use the beauty trap. Yi Qinghan pondered for a while and decided to use the same old trick. Thus, he got up and dressed up. He was dressed in black, looking resolute and domineering. His masculine aura was not something an ordinary person could possess. The majesty and profoundness in the depths of his eyes were something that even the divine master of Yi Shanshan couldn't compare to. Yi Qinghan gently flicked the corner of his battle robe, looking incomparably confident. He had never lacked confidence in his appearance. Even if the Flame Emperor came, he would still dare to compete in this aspect. I don't believe there's a woman in this world that I can't charm. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into an arrogant smile. It was devilishly charming, enough to make a chaste woman submit. Night gradually descended. The moonlight was like water, and the shadows of the trees on both sides swayed with the breeze, looking exceptionally beautiful. Indeed, it was easy to destroy but difficult to rebuild. I hope that in the final battle, this place will still be a pure land. Venerable Ho-Yi sacrificed his life for peace. It's time for your son to enjoy it, Yi Qinghan muttered to himself as he sighed softly. Old ancestor, please protect me. The sun-shooting immortal destroying bow is here. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes tightly and prayed silently. At this moment, he could only pray for the old ancestor's protection. Time passed silently. Yi Qinghan counted the time. Just after the second watch, the pitch-black night enveloped. As the saying went, the night of killing with a dark moon and a strong wind, the heavens worked beautifully. Whoosh! Only a few people remained clear-headed due to the soul shroud. No one was paying attention to their room. He gently opened the window and quietly disappeared. He circled around the outer city and instantly teleported 1,000 miles away. Yi Qinghan was currently in the southeast, but his destination was the Azure Peak directly in front of Ho-Yi's statue in the east. It was half a city away, more than 10,000 kilometers away. He advanced at a moderate pace. Situ Xuetong had arrived at this moment. However, she didn't stand out in the open and instead hid in the shadows, waiting for Yi Qinghan to appear. I don't believe that you won't reveal your foxtail today. Daring to pretend to be an idiot to trick people, you must be up to no good. Situ Xuetong muttered to herself. Her thin lips curled up as she confidently said, My predictions have never been wrong, and this time will be no different. You dared to embarrass me in front of so many people. If I don't make you kneel and beg for mercy today, I'll believe you. The beautiful mountain range stretched on endlessly with a vast expanse of mist. When the wind blew, the mist and dew sprinkled down and dripped onto Situ Xuetong's white robe. The scenery was picturesque, and the beauty was even more beautiful. Such a quiet night was indeed a good place and a good time to talk about love. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan didn't come here to talk about love. If there was a need, he would ruthlessly destroy the flowers. It was better than slaughtering the gaudy realm. Time passed bit by bit. The third watch was about to arrive. Situ Xuetong frowned and stared at the top of the mountain with her bright eyes. That was where the moonlight shone. As long as Yi Qinghan appeared, she would definitely notice him immediately. This brat actually didn't come. Is he trying to trick me? She snorted. At this moment, a figure appeared next to the rock where Situ Xuetong was lying on. He reached out and pulled the beautiful girl into his arms. He smiled and said, How could I not accept a beauty's invitation? Wouldn't I be ruining this beautiful scenery and beauty? Hiss! Situ Xuetong sucked in a breath of cold air. It was too late for her to escape because she couldn't control the laws of nature around her. She couldn't even summon any strength. Since you're here, why don't you have a good chat with me? How did you see through my identity? If you answer well, you'll be rewarded. Yi Qinghan hooked Situ Xuetong's chin with a devilish charm. His hoarse voice made one's hair stand on end. Only then did Situ Xuetong realize how big of a god she had offended. He was even more exaggerated than a sage. Who are you? Situ Xuetong asked in a trembling voice. Yi Qinghan smiled calmly and answered truthfully, I'm Yi Qinghan, the overworld primal universe's crazy manor lord. Now, it's time for you to answer my questions. 1 question per person, very fair. I can't use my computer during the day, so I stayed up late to write 2 chapters. The 3rd chapter will be very late. It'll probably be 11 at night. Let's not wait. Chapter 3081. Situ Xuetong's face was so pale that one could see her snow-white face even in the dark. You are an outsider. Situ Xuetong's face became even paler. Everyone in the E-Divine realm knew that outsiders were devils. Every time someone came, there would be a storm of blood. Yi Qinghan didn't know much about the history of the E-Divine realm, but he knew a bit about it. He lightly said, Don't worry, great beauty. Although I'm not a good person, I won't harm Ho-Yi's descendant because Ho-Yi is also one of my ancestors. He is an outsider, one of the ancestors of the 3rd planet. I'm also from the 3rd planet, So you know what I mean. Situ Shuatong didn't know about Ho Yi's background, so she didn't believe Yi Qinghan's words. What do you want to do in Yixin's realm? Why are you pretending to be crazy? Her voice trembled as she asked. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly and pinched her beautiful face. You have so many questions. If you want to know more, you have to answer a few of mine. What do you want to know? Situ Shuatong's shoulders trembled in fear. Yi Qinghan calmly asked, How did you know that I was pretending? Because Situ Shuatong didn't expect her speculation to cause so much trouble. She smiled wryly and said, I was only speculating. Dong Yuan's attitude towards you made me suspicious. Later on, I took a closer look. I saw the purity in the depths of your eyes and the aura and majesty that no one else had. I guessed that your identity wasn't ordinary, but I didn't think that you were an outsider. At most, I thought you were a young master from a hidden noble family who approached Dong Yuan in order to pursue her. Is that why you want to fight and take me away from her? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Gulp, Situ Shuatong swallowed her saliva and replied hesitantly, Yes, I'll tell you why I'm here. My goal is Godfather's sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. You don't have to tell me where the bow is, I'll tell you why I want it. Yi Qinghan stared at Situ Shuatong with an unprecedented seriousness and deepened his voice. The apocalypse is coming. Back then, Godfather and the ancestors of the third planet fought against all the virtuous paragons and saints from the secondary universe. Ho Yi, Godfather, and virtuous paragons paid a heavy price. Their lives were sacrificed while the others were heavily injured. Virtuous paragon Yuzun took advantage of the injuries of the 9 paragons to create the 9 divine cauldrons. He set up the 9 cauldrons formation and sealed the 9-star domain at the foundation of the primal universe. At the same time, he suppressed the 9 paragons in the 9 planets. She didn't know anything about Ho Yi's history. Perhaps even the Sacred Lord didn't know, so she was only shocked and confused at this moment. Do you understand? Yi Qinghan asked in a serious tone. Situ Shuatong was in a daze for a long time. She nodded before shaking her head. She looked at Yi Qinghan's serious expression and whispered, I understand, but why should I believe in this kind of history? Maybe you're just making it up? Yi Qinghan snorted and said with disdain, If I wanted to destroy the Yi divine realm, it wouldn't be difficult. However, all of you are the descendants and inheritors of Ho Yi. You and I are from the same root. I didn't want to massacre this place, so I had to sneak into the Yi divine mountain. Now, I'll tell you why I want the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. It's because the 9 paragons suppressed in the secondary universe are about to awaken. I need the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow to seriously injure them again. Only then can I seal or kill them. Otherwise, when they awaken, it won't be safe for you to hide here. Ordinary existences in the primal and secondary universes will be annihilated, and very few will survive. Hiss, Situ Shuatong took a deep breath. She didn't expect Yi Qinghan's goal to be so grand that it involved the survival of the entire universe. You're the savior of the world? Situ Shuatong looked at Yi Qinghan. If this person was really a hero, then he would be the best choice in a woman's heart. Yi Qinghan shrugged and replied with disdain, I'm not a hero. I was forced to defend myself because my arrogant sect was the first to bear the brunt of the 9 paragons awakening. Most importantly, I wanted to revive some people, so I had to kill these 9 paragons first. That's why I'm not a hero. All men wanted to be a hero in a woman's heart, but Yi Qinghan was a special case because he didn't want to be a hero at all. This surprised Situ Shuatong, but because of this, she was willing to believe that Yi Qinghan was telling the truth. Yi Qinghan looked at Situ Shuatong's surprised expression and explained, A hero who wants to be the savior of the world dies rather quickly. As for me, I only care about the arrogant sect brothers, not the world. Even if I did save the world, it would only be in passing. That's why I'm not a hero. You can call me a careerist hero or a ruthless hero. You are quite honest. Situ Shuatong smiled wryly. Yi Qinghan pinched her soft cheeks again and said with a grin, Look at how honest I am with you. You have to be honest with me too. Otherwise, I'm going to make you meet me naked, without a single piece of clothing on. Situ Shuetong's face turned red as she angrily rebuked, "You're so despicable and shameless, I was wrong about you. It's not too late to get to know each other now." Yi Qinghan replied with a smile. Hiss, whoosh, under the breeze, Situ Shuetong's breathing quickened. Her proud peaks trembled. She wanted to leave, but she couldn't. "Now tell me where the sun-shooting immortal destroyer Bao is," Yi Qinghan calmly asked. His words were calm, but they were filled with the strictest of orders. Situ Shuetong didn't dare disobey. But the sun-shooting immortal destroyer Bao was Father God's divine weapon. Although her status wasn't weak, she didn't have the right to know about it. "I really don't know. Dong Qing might know." Situ Shuetong's voice trembled. Yi Qinghan snorted coldly, scaring Situ Shuetong so much that she began to tremble. "I really don't know. I'm just a woman. How could I know about this? No one in God Yi's realm dares to talk about this, and no one dares to covet Father God's divine weapon." Situ Shuetong explained in a panic. "Then tell me, has the sun-shooting immortal destroyer Bao ever appeared in God Yi's realm?" Yi Qinghan asked again. Finally, Situ Shuetong gave an affirmative answer. She nodded and replied, "It did. The first time outsiders entered God Yi's realm, they caused a storm of blood. Sacred Lord had no choice but to ask for Father God's divine weapon. But after that, it never appeared again. Even during the Second Great War, when blood flowed like rivers, Father God's divine weapon never appeared again." Yi Qinghan frowned. He didn't understand why Father God didn't ask for the sun-shooting immortal destroyer Bao in the Second Great War. Did he lose it? Or could it be that Sacred Lord Yi couldn't use it anymore? Chapter 3082. Yi Qinghan wasn't able to use the sun-shooting immortal exterminating Bao for the second time, so he was mentally prepared. It would be fine if the Sacred Lord of Yishan Mountain couldn't use it, but if he lost it, then it would be a big problem. "I'll go up the sacred mountain to take a look. If I can't, then I'll see if I have a chance at the ceremony." Yi Qinghan murmured to himself before taking a deep breath. He saw the panicked Situ Shuetong's eyes darting around as if she was trying to think of a way to escape. He knew that she didn't trust him. Whether he could go up the sacred mountain or not depended on her, so he had to gain her trust. Yi Qinghan glanced at her face and stared into her eyes. He knew that she wasn't a bad person at heart. She only wanted to suppress Dong Yuan. "Miss Situ, help me this time. I'll take you to see the origin universe." Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice, "This time, you're not just helping me, you're also helping the E-God realm, and more importantly, you're helping yourself. You're also not letting Godfather Ho Yi's efforts go to waste." Situ Shuetong's fingertips trembled. It was rare to see Yi Qinghan with such a serious expression. Yi Qinghan at this moment truly had the spirit and majesty of a great hero. No one could refuse him. "How can I help you?" She quietly asked. When sharing souls, there was no defense. Her shoulders and looked down at her. A weak soul couldn't possibly withstand the attack of a progenitor. "I want to make sure that the Bao is there. Situ Shuetong, if it is, one of the top 5 beauties, Sacred Lord, but she was also because a progenitor. I might not be able to use even it. Though she had just entered the progenitor realm, the 9 her cultivation again, was still the Sacred Lord will have to personally take action. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Don't worry, I'm definitely not lying and asked in a low voice. Once I find out that the immortal Bao is faintly and said calmly, I'll definitely trust the Sacred Lord and tell him the truth. If I didn't want to talk to you, the Bao you would have died the moment I appeared, and a virtuous paragon will tell you the truth." Shuetong was stunned by Yi Qinghan's boldness. She helplessly said, felt that his self-evaluation was not wrong. I have no reason to take you to the sacred mountain. This was a formidable person. Not just anyone can go up there. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Looked at Situ Shuetong at this moment and firmly Yi Qinghan let go of his soul and completely relaxed, the sun shooting immortal destroying Shuetong's hands. Everyone will be finished. Although Situ Shuetong was suspicious of Yi Qinghan, trembled slightly, if it was true and she killed him now, Yishan realm would definitely suffer a devastating blow, not only from the 9 great sages, but also from Kwang she had concealed it. Normal people wouldn't be able to tell, but Yi Qinghan only then did she realize how powerful Yi Qinghan didn't dare to take the risk. His soul was far beyond the progenitor realm. Herself, it would definitely be young, a fierce but he's battle. Already a sage. He immediately sat down cross-legged on the ground and said calmly, Yi Qinghan's age was at most the same as hers. I will share my soul memories based on appearance, but the way cultivators determined stared at Yi Qinghan in shock. The two souls fused. If it had been anyone else, they wouldn't have had a defensive layer, think about it. But Yi Qinghan didn't. It was simply impossible. Sidu Shuang saw even if that person's cultivation level was one level higher, countless years later, still be killed. Yi Qinghan's past shocked Sidu Shuatong. This was an epic history book, even more legendary than the sacred lords. The memories of the third planet appeared, as did Yu Zun's words. After a while, Sidu Shuatong understood that Yi Qinghan wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. Thump, thump, thump. Sidu Shuatong was alarmed. Her heart was beating much faster than before, and her face was red. She looked at Yi Qinghan again with a strange feeling. Even though she knew that Yi Qinghan had several wives, her heartstrings were still tugged. Women all liked heroes, and Yi Qinghan was definitely one. Sidu Shuatong's fingers trembled as she withdrew from Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. The emotions in her eyes were clearly different. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and slowly stood up with his back facing Sidu Shuang. His hands were behind his back, and a gentle breeze blew his black hair. Under the moonlight, his aura was particularly powerful. I respect Ho Yi, so I don't dare to make things difficult for his descendants. I hope you can help me this once. I don't want to make a move against someone from the sacred mountain, Yi Qinghan said with a serious tone. Under the moonlight, the shadow was very long, and the wind was starting to get cold. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The branches rustled, creating a beautiful scene. Sidu Shuatong couldn't describe her feelings. Her heart had already left the outer realm and entered the origin universe. She wanted to be like Kuang Fu, conquering the four directions and shattering all the laws of the origin universe. She wanted to reform the world and make the world submit. Even a soldier from Kuang Fu could intimidate a city lord. Yi Qinghan waited for a long time while Sidu Shuatong was lost in her thoughts. He turned around and saw her infatuated gaze at his back. He couldn't help but reveal a charming smile. He reached out to lift her chin and said with a hoarse voice, Beauty Shuatong, I hope that your heart is as pure as snow and as sweet as candy. Be the savior and save the world. Save yourself, and save me once. Sidu Shuatong's face turned even redder. She subconsciously nodded and said, Yes, yes, I'll help you, I'll definitely help you. Yi Qinghan smiled and reached out to hug her soft shoulders. Be good, a beauty like you should be #1 in the world. Sidu Shuatong couldn't resist Yi Qinghan's praise. She lowered her head and buried it deep in her own mountain. Tomorrow, I will ask Father to introduce me to the alchemy god elder. I hope that he can personally treat your internal injury. His Excellency has a high status and definitely won't leave the mountain in person. That way, you will have a chance to enter the sacred mountain. Sidu Shuatong gently said. Chapter 3083. It was late at night and dawn was approaching. The entire world was plunged into darkness. Yi Qinghan looked up and said, The day after tomorrow, I'll wait for you at the Autumn Water Inn in the southeast. I'll leave Dong Yuan with you then. Tomorrow, do your best to make sure I can reach Sacred Mountain. At this moment, Sidu Shuatong had completely surrendered. She only wanted to help Yi Qinghan. All right, wait for my good news. She nodded. Whoosh. The void distorted and Yi Qinghan left. Whoosh, Sidu Shuatong was full of ambition and wanted to be the savior of the world. Watch me tomorrow. Sidu Shuatong smiled gently and said firmly. After that, Sidu Shuatong also left Green Peak. An hour later, dawn arrived. It was so dark that one couldn't even see one's own fingers. Yi Qinghan quietly returned through the window without alerting anyone. The next day, eastern region of Sacred Mountain, Situ Estate. Sidu Shuatong appeared outside the main hall of the Situ Estate with a rosy face. The hall was golden with jade dragon and phoenix statues on both sides. It was very majestic. A dignified middle-aged expert sat in the hall. He was on the verge of becoming a sage and possessed monstrous strength. He had slanted eyebrows, a square face, and eyes that were full of pressure. No one dared to blaspheme his dignity. He was the new head of the Situ estate, Situ gang. Though he hadn't been in the position for long, he was enough to intimidate the entire Ishan world and convince everyone. Looked at Dong Yuan's helpless expression and felt a little embarrassed. Father, he had given her hope, but now he had crushed it with his own hands. He could understand how she felt. This was the first time he saw such an expression on Situ Shuatong's face. In order to confirm his dignity and immortal vanquishing bow. This is the first time I've seen you blush. And supremacy you left with Situ Shuatong under Dong Yuan's gaze, and I'll hand you over. Situ Shuatong's voice was like a great bell, reverberating through the hall. The news although he seemed to be joking, snatching the truth was that there was a bit of reluctance and anger in his eyes. In the battle between the two beauties, so hard to raise this flower, had emerged and now it was going to be taken away by someone else. Position as number 5. You're spouting nonsense again, Chen Bei. This time was the first to find out I need your help with. Matter. I have a friend whose soul has been injured and even the master apothecary can't heal intent. So, boom, I want to ask you to speak up and let the master apothecary elder shattering it into pieces. Situ Shuatong stomped her feet and said coquettishly, Chen Bei glared ahead and clenched his fist. This friend is very important to me. His murderous intent shrouded the surroundings. Gang was not a fool. Even the disciple who passed him the message, if he was not so sure that his daughter was in love, dare to move, then he would be too stupid. Where did Shuatong take those two? In an instant, the atmosphere in the hall coldly as he looked at the young disciple. Senior brother Chen Bei waved his hand, almost and the several figures retreated. Senior brother, the father and daughter don't understand why senior sister Shuatong stared at Situ Shuatong to those two idiots. Took a deep breath, is she really just trying to suppress Dong Yuan? Calmly, tell me, the young disciple said flatteringly. It's senior sister Shuatong's loss that she didn't choose you. Chen Bei stared coldly at the disciple. He hated it when people talked about Situ Shuatong, and he hated it even more when people said that Situ Shuatong didn't choose him. There are some things you'd better not say. Leave. Chen Bei reprimanded coldly. The disciple trembled in fear and immediately left respectfully. Chen Bei's figure flashed and left the sacred mountain, heading straight for the canyon southeast of the Situ residence. That was the only way to get to the Situ residence from the southeast. He wanted to kill Yi Qinghan there. Many people were coming and going in the canyon. After all, there wasn't much danger in the sacred mountain. Chen Bei used stellar transposition and appeared at the top of the canyon, overlooking the southeast. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you insist on coming. Chen Bei took a deep breath, and a pair of golden gloves appeared on his fist. These were the most famous Ishan dragon boxing gloves of the Ishan world, and there were a total of 10 of them. They were at the level of the false sage, and they could increase the strength of an ancestor by tens of times. Chen Bei was definitely stronger than Situ Shui. He was almost on par with Situ Gang. He was one of the 5 strongest elites of the younger generation. Even though he hadn't become the last disciple of the Sacred Mountain's sacred leader, it was already set in stone. Chen Beifeng was as divine as jade, but there was a vicious aura between his brows. When he saw the fluctuations of progenitor realm power in the distance, he knew that Situ Shuatong was about to arrive. Shuatong, no matter what you want to do, you shouldn't have angered me, Chen Bei muttered to himself. Whoosh! Ripples appeared in the stable space of the world of the virtuous sage. A moment later, 3 figures appeared side by side, appearing at the end of the canyon in the blink of an eye. Situ Shuatong landed outside the canyon. After passing through the canyon, it would only take a moment for her to reach the Situ residence. Therefore, she wanted to walk back and give some instructions to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's divine sense swept over and found Chen Bei. He couldn't help but sigh. He really didn't want to get into a conflict with the people of the sacred mountain. Sovereign Yi also noticed the murderous look on Chen Bei's face. He couldn't help but ask, "Boss, should I secretly suppress him first so that he won't delay our plans?" Yi Qinghan shook his head and replied, "No need. I'll do it myself. Perhaps Situ Shuatong will be able to persuade him to leave." Situ Shuatong didn't notice Chen Bei. When she reached the center, Chen Bei's figure flashed and blocked the 3 of them. The murderous aura on his body made the surrounding people retreat, not daring to approach the canyon. At that moment, Situ Gang of the Situ residents had already received the news. He stood in the distance and coldly looked over, observing Chen Bei and Yi Qinghan. When Sidu Xuetang saw Chen Bei's expression, she immediately frowned and said, "Senior brother Chen Bei, what are you doing?" "Xuetang, can you explain to me why you brought these two here?" "You know that I hate it when these two come into contact with you," said Chen Bei in a deep voice. Situ Xuetang immediately responded with dissatisfaction. "Senior brother, I have the freedom to make friends. You and I are just friends. I hope you understand and don't interfere with my freedom." "Friends? Just friends?" Chen Bei's fingertips trembled and he clenched his fists. The laws of the Yishan dragon-subduing gauntlets radiated in all directions, and his murderous aura grew even stronger. "It's just friends. At least I think of you as a friend," said Sidu Xuetang straightforwardly. Chen Bei took a deep breath and stared at Yi Qinghan. He said coldly, "Yi Qinghan, I heard that you were born with divine strength. I'd like to see it for myself. If you can take a punch from me, I'll turn around and leave. From then on, I'll avoid you whenever I see you." The idiocy in Yi Qinghan's eyes didn't disappear. In fact, there was still fear in them. The more Chen Bei looked at him, the angrier he became. He didn't expect to lose to a fool when it came to pursuing a woman.